all of you who hung out with us for Project Game Day last night. Had a great time. We do it every game day, so we'll be back on Sunday following Ravens-Eagles. Myself, Rita, Femi, KZ. No Stecca last night, but Josh Charles did his best Andrew Stecca impression. I think he's a better Stecca than Stecca. No offense. Andrew, you know I love you, but, I mean, how many Taylor Swift music videos have you been in, huh? That's what I thought. 4, which is not nearly as many. I had a great time. PressBoxOnline.com/gameday. It's all brought to you by our friends at EasyPass and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org. And yeah, we'll be back this Sunday immediately following the game. If you missed last night's show, then when this show is over and not a second earlier, if I see you ducking out to watch that show instead, then I'm going to do nothing about it, but I don't want you to, so I'm going to make it seem like I'm going to do something.
If we see listens on the post-game show go up during this show?
Yeah, not acceptable. That's it. That's it. We're taking it down. We're not doing it. We're not doing it. You don't get to choose me over me. You only get more me. And that is something to truly be thankful for this holiday season. Coming up on the program today, our buddy Emory Hunt, CBS Sports. He will check in with us. We'll get his thoughts on the Ravens' victory in Los Angeles last evening. We'll do our regular Tuesday stuff as well, as it's a weird week where the Ravens play on Monday, and we're only doing 3 shows, so we can't really move anything because we got to mesh we got to do picks tomorrow. It's just a whole nightmare thing. It's what it is. So we'll talk to Joe Serpico today ahead of Waiver-Wire Wednesday, and we'll talk to Patrick Stevens about Maryland. And
well, I mean, picks are only a nightmare for you, but
well, it's a nightmare in general this week. It's just too much,
Specifically, picks for you.
I drink too much. I don't know what we're gonna do Christmas week. By the way, somebody asked me that the other day. Like, what are you guys thinking about for Christmas week? I'm like, I have no, because we normally take off on Christmas Eve, so that I've got a day to get my life in order, but.
So it's okay.
We got to do a Ravens recap on Monday, and then I don't know. The answer is no effing idea, no clue. I don't know. Like I am willing to take ideas. The answer probably is we do like a. I don't know. I don't know.
We do a bunch of Zooms, maybe. I don't know.
But it's what it is. Here's all I know. For sure, is that we've got today, and we'll worry about then. That's going to be a problem for future Glenn and nobody else. All right, here's what's what my thought process is. I'm not writing a column because I wrote about Maryland football yesterday for PressBox, so I'm not doing another column this week about the Ravens game. If I did a column about this particular game, it would probably be focused on the 4th and 1, right? And that moment. And I posed the question last night during Project Game Day as to whether or not that moment, the first 4th and 1, because I get it, there ended up being 3, that one could end up being a turning point type of moment in the season. The comparison, just for conversation's sake, that I threw out was the comparison to 4th and 2 in Seattle in 2019, and hell yeah, coach, let's go for it. And I certainly don't think it's that. Because as we talk about, that was a reflection of Lamar Jackson sort of coming into his own. That moment was far different than this. I don't even know if the Ravens lose the game last night or if all that much is different if they don't go for it in that spot. But I do wonder about a team that kind of felt lethargic, complacent. Just, I've wondered a lot about how easy it is to have this team be up for every game that they play, and every game seems like it's been against another really good opponent all season, except for the 2 games that they lost. I wonder how easy it is for this group to be up for all of those games, with their expectation being, well, we're supposed to be competing for championships. And, we were talking about Tavares Gooden was on with us yesterday. He was talking about, like, the collegiate atmosphere that exists within the Chargers and within a Jim Harbaugh team. And, I don't know, I kind of haven't felt that with this Ravens team this year. it's felt far more professional, more workmanlike, more. I'll tell you, we're working this print issue of PressBox with Derek Queen and Juju Reese is still available at your neighborhood Royal Farms and will be for another couple of weeks before it makes way for our annual Best of issue. You can read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. But we're working on the Best of issue right now and, like, legitimately struggling with, like, some trying to make sure we have enough Ravens moments. Because, you know, it hasn't had the same feel. The story of the Ravens sort of been like, Lamar good, Derrick Henry good, Justin Tucker not so much, defense, although improving, hopefully, based on the last 2 weeks. Offensive line, It hasn't had the same sort of collective joy as much as it's sort of just felt like it's happening. And there's been enough down moments that we don't even remember all. Like, tell me all the memories you have from the blowout win over the Bills.
Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Seth freaking Rollins was there.
Great. Thank you.
Is he in the Best of issue?
No, he didn't make it.
No. Maybe we should go back to the drawing board.
Like there haven't been the same. It's hard to explain. It's just been Lamar Jackson good, Derrick Henry good for the most part, with other guys peppering in slightly. So it's just felt like maybe this team needed some sort of spark. I think a lot of us were hoping the trade deadline would provide that. And for what it's worth, Tre'Davious White, maybe not a spark, but something. Like that.
Football player.
We all kind of feel like doofuses for the things we said about the Tre'Davious White trade. Like, the Deontay Johnson one's significant. The Tre'Davious White one is nothing. Flip it, reverse it. The exact opposite of that. At least to now. That could change, clearly. It has been something that I've just wondered. I don't want to compare it to the Orioles and, like, trying to flip a switch because they're not playing poorly. They've lost football games, but they haven't on the whole been bad. Again, they're still the DVOA number 2 team in the league. And as was pointed out by ESPN last night, on pace to maybe be the most historic offense of all time with 7 yards per play. That's preposterous. It's preposterous. But it's just sort of felt like it's happening. It hasn't felt like a special cosmic thing going on. And I think part of that has to do with the burden that they carry of we can't celebrate regular season wins. Because does it matter? So it sort of felt like they kind of needed something. And I don't know that 4th and 1 decision before at the 2-minute warning last night will be that thing. But it had that feel of like something that could provide them that little bit of a swift kick in the pants that, yeah, all right, let's go. And this push to the finish line should still be fun. We're competing right now. They're not going to get the 1 seed. That's clearly off the table. But winning the division is still important. Hosting a playoff game is still a big deal. It certainly won't have the ticket demand of the AFC Championship game, but it's still a big deal. You'd rather host a playoff game than roll the dice about a trip somewhere else. And I guess right now it's kind of like the trip would be Houston, unless they're ready to completely fall apart. And who knows? It's a goofy situation that's going on there. It might very well be that somehow they welcome Tennessee back into that division, which is insanity.
No.
Because Tennessee's no good. They're only 2 games up.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. This was essentially this game on this past Sunday was to win the division, more or less.
Like that. Yeah. Like they could have.
Yeah. Essentially clinched. I guess what are the Colts? Just
the Colts are 5 and 7.
5 and 7. So they're 2 games back as well. But I don't know what happened between the Colts and the Texans. I just know that the Titans have a win over the Texans now.
The Titans are still 3 and 8, so it's like
Titans are still 3-8.
Yeah, they were 2-8 heading into Sunday.
God.
Yeah, they were bad.
God. The Colts are still alive.
Technically, yes.
Yes, the Colts are still alive.
That is how math works.
I assume the Texans are still going to win the division, and I assume they're going to be the 4 seed. That's the most likely scenario. But all that being said,
a Ravens road playoff game in Indy.
I'll pass.
Even against this I guess if they win the division, that means.
So that's the point. That means that Anthony Richardson's playing a little bit better. That means that look, it's conversation for another time. I'm not going to deal with it right now. Moral of the story. Moral of the story. They needed something. I feel like it's possible that moment could be that something. Will it be? We'll see what happens on Sunday. I don't know that in the locker room, it's totally possible that on the sideline, they weren't all that galvanized by it. They were like, okay, yeah, sure. It didn't seem like that sort of collegiate, rah-rah feeling afterwards. It felt very more like, okay, yeah, that's what we're doing. Everything about this season has felt workmanlike. And even that moment, as it played out, for the rest of us, it was like, whoa! But for them, it felt very much like, okay, that's what we'll go do. Which is part of the reason why, I was down with the call. I don't think they were going to panic. I think they believed that they were just going to go pick up a half a yard and get on with it. Which, of course, is exactly what they did. They still have a lot to prove about where they are in the pecking order of the top teams in the AFC. There's 3 that have separated themselves. And I don't want to be disrespectful to the Steelers by not including. If you still want to put the Steelers in that group for the sake of it, just because of their record, fine. I don't believe the Steelers can win the AFC. I think there are 3 teams that are capable of winning the AFC. And I get maybe if the Dolphins were to keep rolling, we do have to acknowledge that the record reflects the time that Tua wasn't playing and that they have kind of looked like the Dolphins again the last couple of weeks, but I still think they have to prove it by beating better teams to get me to believe that they can win the AFC. Right now, it looks like there are 3 teams that are capable of winning the AFC. Where do the Ravens stand among them? I don't know. They're going to have to show that in these coming weeks. If they go take care of business against the Eagles on Sunday, if they follow that up by doing what they should have done, beat the Steelers at home, go to Houston, if they do those things, then I'm going to feel pretty strongly about their chances going into the playoffs. If they don't, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't mean they can't, right? It doesn't mean that they're out of it. That's the problem with making these grandiose statements is I can't be like, well, if they lose to the Eagles, it's over. No, it's not. It ain't great, but it ain't over.
And you always have the 2012 season to look at, and it's like,
yeah,
they just gotta.
It was miserable.
Just gotta make it.
Again, they did flip the switch right in January. I don't know. But I just can't escape that moment and what the significance of the moment might be. The other storylines from last night, obviously, again, the defense backs up their performance in Pittsburgh. I get it. It ends up being 23 points. That's the bummer is I was ready. I was thinking about potential topics, and the idea of them allowing less than 20 points in back-to-back games was going to be one that I was going to ride with. But, unfortunately, that late touchdown because of an absurd PI call on Marlon Humphrey. Just absurd. That keeps that drive alive. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I won't do it, but I get why everybody's like, oh, somebody had to make sure that game hit the, I get it because that is just awful.
Well, Marlon Humphrey should have known not to breathe on him,
Right. Or be in the general vicinity. What a dreadful, dreadful PI call that was. But that said, even with that, you're not going to get me to get worked up about it. The Ravens defense largely did their job and did essentially what they're going to be asked to do. As we kept saying, nobody needs this to be the 2000 Ravens defense or the best defense in the NFL. It just kind of needs to not be the worst. Don't be the worst pass defense. And for back-to-back games, they've looked a lot better than that. And yes, it coincides with Eddie Jackson no longer being on the team and Marcus Williams no longer being asked to do much. And
he played one snap last night.
I want to say not playing, but that's the problem. I can't say not playing. But our Darius Washington has slid in and has looked good, and Tre'Davious White has been way more helpful than any of us thought he was going to be. Not to say he's looked like the Pro Bowl version of Tre'Davious White again. Just the bar was low for Tre'Davious White. It was we thought he was just gonna he's gonna be the guy playing one snap. Well, not the case. He's been very helpful. And yeah, the other storyline last night was Malik Harrison was phenomenal, and Chris Board was very helpful in passing situations. To me, that aside from the 4th and 1, was the biggest story of the game. Was that I was extraordinarily concerned about what this would look like without Roquan Smith on the field.
And well, for a drive, it was very concerning.
They were using the middle of the field, and then I had about 80 different text threads going last night. And all of them involved me saying Malik Harrison's not that guy. And then all of a sudden, he was that guy. And I don't know what that means moving forward, other than it's just we'll remember that. We'll think of this as the Malik Harrison game. But they needed it, and he gave it to them. Big time. Big time gave it to them. That doesn't mean that I need to see more of Malik Harrison. A couple people were doing that last night, like, with I had a few people in the comments, like, what happens to Trenton Simpson now when Roquan Smith gets healthy? I'm like, I don't think anything changes.
So the interesting thing is, because the snap counts finally came out, so Malik Harrison at linebacker played the most. He had 50 snaps, 72% snaps. Chris Board played 54% of snaps, and Trenton Simpson played 43% of the snaps.
Okay, that's interesting. I don't know what to make of that. Chris Board was on the field in passing situations.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean that we're going to see more of Chris Board taking Trenton Simpson's snaps? That's really what you're reading into, is they like Chris Board in passing situations? And I'd have to dive into that a little bit more to see if that means something. But I don't know that it suddenly means they're going to say, let's throw everything after Malik Harrison. We've got to have him on the field more. As much as it is, it's good to have depth. It's good to have options. Guys do get hurt. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what it means. But, incredible game. Incredible game from Malik Harrison, who, we'll get the pats on the ass later. He going to be there. Speaking of which, get me your pats on the ass. @ Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter. Pick 5 Ravens. Remember, 2 must be offensive players, 2 must be defensive players. The 5th can be another offensive player, another defensive player, a special teams player, or a coach. And that was tough because I thought multiple coaches were deserving of recognition for last night's game, and I was only allowed to pick 1, which was a bummer. But those are the rules, and we play by the rules around these parts. So get me yours. @ Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter. Everyone who gets in will be registered to win a $50 gift card to the Costas Inn. So get me your pats on the ass right now. @ Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter. You can always, Proctor, you can get them in on Blue Sky if you'd like. I got to figure out how to get notifications from Blue Sky on my phone. I got to work on that. Those of you that have moved on from Twitter, you can do it on Blue Sky. Same thing, Glenn Clark Radio. And someone who participates will indeed win that $50 gift card to the Costas Inn. All right, joining us now, he was on CBS Sports HQ last night for halftime, post-game festivities surrounding Ravens-Chargers. Friend of ours, Mr. Football Game Plan himself. He is our buddy Emory Hunt, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Emory, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's always great to catch up with you, man. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Anytime. I appreciate you guys bringing me on.
Absolutely, man. Emory, I saw what you were saying last night, and it's funny because our friend Rita and I were texting about it during the game. I was terrified that with the Ravens going down 2 scores, it meant, oh, God, they're going to get away from the run, aren't they? And I think all of us saw the same thing, that based on how the Chargers were playing, the steady diet of the run made sense. I hate giving a team credit for doing the thing that was obvious, but given their history, I kind of feel like I'm forced to give them credit for the fact that when it became a 2-score game early on, they didn't lose their identity, and they remembered, like, right, let's keep going back to Derrick Henry and feeding him the ball.
Right, and a lot of times I've been fighting this battle for years with folks because they always like to think, and I can understand why the thought process is where if you're down, you got to start throwing the ball. Like, no, man, you can still stay with your game plan. A big run play can get you back in the game like a big pass can. And there's less room for error because of, a lot of things can go wrong when you throw the football. But and it's funny because based on what we saw Sunday versus the Packers in the Packers-Niners game, the Packers were bludgeoning the 49ers with the run game. Then they started to throw the football a lot. And next thing you know, the 49ers hung around. Then they said, you know what, let's get back to the run game. So watching what Baltimore did last night, based off how the defense sort of played Baltimore, tried to line up versus Baltimore, and that's why I gave my game ball to Patrick Ricard, because the Ravens kept him on the field, which gave them an advantage in terms of, blocking and how they were going to get to the second level, get a lineman to the second level, or get him, who's built like a lineman, to the second level. It just worked perfectly. And I said every time they were in I formation, Henry was getting 6 yards plus.
Yep.
And when they didn't have Ricard on the field, the Chargers were able to match up, beat Henry to the spot, and kind of minimize his gain. So it was a smart coaching, man. Like, hey, this is working. It's working rather well. And from an offensive coordinator standpoint, let's just save a lot of our players for next week.
And look, winning games in trenches is nice, particularly after what happened in Pittsburgh last week. It's a nice reminder that they're still capable of doing that. Emory, with that said, how much do you factor in the decision that they made? Not just obviously the one that stands out is the 4th and short from their own 16-yard line. They went for it on 4th and short 2 more times later on in the game, but did it feel like that in a way that some of the risk was mitigated by the success that they were having up front?
Yes, and I'm glad you asked that question in that way, because that's been my whole argument for when and where to go for it for 2. If you see how you're moving the ball, it makes your 2-point conversion thought process a lot clearer. Ravens, we can get this 1 yard. We've been mowing these guys off the line of scrimmage all game. This 1 yard in a short yardage situation is easier for us to get because of how we played this ball game. And it hadn't been a struggle to blow these guys off the ball. So, yes, we can go for it here, albeit backed up on our own 16-yard line because of how well we ran the football. And so if teams and coaching staffs take that sort of approach when they decide to go for 2, I think that's when you have a higher success success rate of converting those 2-point conversions because of how you got down there and what could potentially work in this scenario.
So that's interesting you bring that up, because I would say I didn't love the decision to go for 2 when they were up 7. I get the thought process, right? We'll dictate the terms instead of having the terms dictated to us. I measure that risk against, say what happened in the Bengals game. If it becomes a 1-score game late and a team goes down and scores a touchdown and you're only up by 7, they now have the chance to go for 2 and win if you don't convert. I'd always like to keep that in the window. But based on what you say there, were you okay with the idea of them going for 2 when they were up 7 in the second half?
No, because I'm kind of torn on it, because I agree with you. If you kick the extra point, you're up 8. They got to score essentially twice. So, and you also got to factor in, and I understand why they went for it, because, man, they hadn't really threatened to score since the first drive. So let's take this risk, put them up 2 scoring possessions, and go from there. I just didn't like the play call, because, again, if we're beating you up front and we're running the football, I didn't like that type of play call. It felt like Lamar kind of panicked a little bit and felt like there was a shot clock involved. He had to get rid of the football, then fired a rocket shot, because the dude was open. It just he just threw it like 1,000 miles an hour. But at the end of the day, I can see both sides in that particular situation. But I'm always concerned in terms of like points add up, and giving me an 8-point lead requires you to not only get down there and score a touchdown, but now have that pressure of we got to convert the 2-point conversion. So I would have stayed with that as opposed to trying to go for 2 and go up 9.
Emory Hunt is with us, CBS Sports HQ, among many locations that you find him. Emory, if I could, just going back to the play from the 16 for a second, defaulting back to your own playing career, if that doesn't work for whatever reason, like if there's a, somehow the snap gets botched and Mark Andrews just has to fall on the ball and the play's dead, what is the sideline like in that moment? Is it still a, hey, we're glad, we want to be that team, let's be aggressive? Or do guys start getting into a place where, like, what the hell are we doing? Like, what does that look like if for some reason it doesn't work?
Guys are all for it. Like, man, listen, we went for it, we're trying to win the game. And it's not like this is the first time we've tried to go for a 4th down conversion in a weird territory or just in general. And guys are like, yeah, I like that. That's aggressive. Let's try to win this thing. And so now you probably get a more energized defense going out there like, all right, cool. Now the challenge is on our shoulders to bow up and get off the field right away and limit them to a field goal. So you're playing these mental gymnastics in your mind of, okay, let's win this situation. We practice this all summer, all spring, these situational football moments. Let's hold them to a field goal, and that's a win for us defensively, and we're still in this ball game. Because when you do go for it on your own 16-yard line, what you're basically saying is, like, whether we get this or not, we believe our offense can score if they score.
Right.
So there's no risk involved, and that's the thought process on the sideline.
All right, let me pose it to you this way. I feel like the other storyline that comes out of last night is that we all kind of said, hey, the defense that had been, the pass defense in particular, had been dreadful for most of the season, looked a lot better against the Steelers. As a unit, they didn't allow a touchdown. I know they end up giving up 23 points because of the late score, but I think in general this backs this up. Nobody thought that this needed to become the best defense in the NFL. It just needed to be a defense that was capable of being more complementary. What have you seen these last 2 weeks in the Ravens defensively, as they've been clearly a lot better than they had been with the addition of Tre'Davious White, and particularly last night playing without Roquan Smith?
It's the secondary. And usually when we're talking about the Ravens, historically we're talking about the front end helping out the back end. But the focus has been on back seven. And we're seeing guys do their job. I know that's cliche, but it's so true, especially in the secondary. If you have defensive backs that understand, if I just don't panic in the situation, 9 times out of 10 I could make a play on the ball or make this difficult for the receiver to make the play. And we saw that manifest itself a lot last night, even with how Tre'Davious White was covering. I don't think that was pass interference, but it was a judgment call. I thought he played the situation rather well. Wiggins did a good job not getting handsy or panicky when the ball was in the air on the deep ball into the end zone. Did a good job playing the ball. We saw Stevens kind of get caught up, but they took that flag away, and that's big for him because he kind of still gets that moment of panic when the ball is in the air. And so if guys just trust what they see, trust their technique, you can make those plays, and that's what we're seeing from Baltimore these last couple of weeks on the back end.
Is it to the point where, like, we think that this is there can be confidence in this, or does that still have to, like, they got to turn around and play the Eagles on Sunday? Maybe that's more of like a test of how improved their defense really is.
That's when you need Roquan Smith, because the difference between the linebackers versus the Chargers versus the linebackers versus the Eagles is that the Chargers really don't challenge you in terms of your eye discipline at the second level, because you don't really truly have to worry about Herbert taking off and running or being a piece of the run game. He can run, but he's not the piece of the run game like the Jalen Hurts is with their zone read, or like what a Saquon Barkley brings to the table in terms of making sure you're gap sound, because he can quickly bounce across multiple gaps and get outside. So the linebackers will be challenged a lot more against Philadelphia, and we'll learn a lot more about the coverage units, the secondary against these receivers, more so than what we saw from the Chargers. Because, again, you might get a Devonta Smith back, so now you're really going to have to trust your technique and trust your ability to make a play on the ball without getting handsy against two elite number one wide receivers.
Don't know that I love the idea of Brandon Stevens in one-on-one coverage with either of those guys. Don't know how I feel about that. I asked this question earlier, Emory. Like, where are the Ravens in the pecking order of the AFC contenders? And I think legitimately we're talking about 3, maybe 4 teams. I think we still have to be respectful to the fact that the Steelers did beat the Ravens a week ago, so I have to include them. It's just difficult for me to really believe that the Steelers are capable of winning the AFC. Where do you think they find? Where are they among that group of Bills, Chiefs, and Steelers? If you want to throw them in as well,
they're right there. I think it's up for grabs in the AFC. You could make a case for all 4 of those squads to win the Super Bowl this year. Chiefs obviously have done it. They played situational football better than anybody. That's why they have won a lot of these games, because they don't lose in those situations. The little things add up to big things, and that's what they do well. Buffalo has a good knockout punch, because they just compete for 4 quarters, and Josh Allen does some Josh Allen things, both good and bad. But the fact that they do have that Mike Tyson-type knockout punch. Pittsburgh, they like to bring you down to their level. They like to muck it up a little bit and force you to play a physical game. Not a lot of teams in football nowadays want to be physical for 60 minutes. And the Ravens have the best player in football in Lamar Jackson, so you're going to always have a chance. And I feel like at some point in time, Justin Tucker will get it together. So they really could play with a half a field, and that puts a lot of strain on your offense to score and match what they can do themselves.
I agree with you about all of that, right? It's just, boy, I think we all want to have like a comfort beyond that. Like we want to feel like there's a separation when the reality is like you're probably going to go into the playoffs and it being everyone is in the mix, and that's just the way that it goes, and you kind of have to deal with that. All right, the $1 million question, of course, being if Boise State were to lose one of these next 2 games, is there any chance that you think that Louisiana can sneak their way into the college football playoff?
This is why I need to be in the room, because no one is advocating for America's Raging Cajuns to be in that conversation. If I was in the room, this would completely change. Not only would we have in the playoff conversation, we'd probably get that 4th seed because we should be ranked higher because we play in a very tough and competitive Sun Belt Conference. You mean to tell me a team from the SEC or ACC can handle the week-to-week grind of the Sun Belt Conference, dealing with a Marshall, a James Madison, a Louisiana Monroe sometimes when they decide to act right? That's what you need. They need to be out there.
I love this, right? Like, I absolutely love it. I also love the idea that maybe college football gets just weird enough that, like, a team that legitimately no one is talking about is back into the conversation in the coming weeks. Emory, what all can we plug for you, man? I know you are about the busiest man on the face of the planet.
Well, right now I'm starting my whole draft process, so they can pre-order my 2025 draft guide, which has over 1,000 scouting prospects, scouting reports in it. Footballgameplan.com/2025 draft guide. It's the largest draft guide in existence for the last 5 years running. And best believe, and I tell you this, just for, you guys knew I stood on Keaton Mitchell.
Yep.
And my number 1 combo safety in the draft when he came out, Darius Washington. Nobody talks about him. Scout report there so listen, you get some good information, you get good quality scouting report, you get an eye that's unbiased, and it gets everybody an opportunity to showcase their skill set.
I love that. At FBall Game Plan is where you follow him on social. Emory, are you on Blue Sky yet?
I am. So it's at FBall Game Plan on Blue Sky
as well.
So yeah, you can see me on CBS Sports HQ all throughout the week. For Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and college football. So I'm always on HQ as well.
Excellent, man. Emory, happy Thanksgiving, brother. Really appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time for us always.
Same to you and yours and the listeners out there. Appreciate y'all as always.
Appreciate you, buddy. Emory Hunt with us here on GCR from CBS Sports, and yeah, I mean, it's funny because Pat Ricard didn't make my. I was really all right. I don't want to give anything away for pats on the ass. I don't want to say anything. We'll do that coming up at 11 o'clock. I'm not going to say anything else, but it was a struggle for me because I wanted to give some of the big uglies some more recognition last night, but I just couldn't zero in on who specifically. I couldn't. And I didn't want to penalize Pat Ricard for the leg whip because I don't think it was a legitimate call.
Do you mean that malicious swing of the?
How dare he? Clearly,
he's trying to end that guy's career.
100% evil man, Pat Ricard. But he didn't. He didn't end up making. I couldn't justify it in the end. We'll talk about that when we get to Pats on the Ass. That's still to come this morning. We come back in every Tuesday. We do talk some college hoops, and we'll get Patrick Stevens' reaction to Maryland's big win over Villanova. So we'll pause some football conversation for just a moment to do that, and then get back into the Ravens as we continue along here on GCR. Brace yourselves for an unparalleled in-person betting experience at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook and Bars in Canton and Towson. Experience the thrill of live betting with Baltimore's only state-of-the-art Vegas viewing TV experience. Choose between their on-site tellers or the convenience of their self-bet kiosks to place your bets. And now stop by the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton every Wednesday for a free $10 bet. Just show up, sign up, and get your $10 bet for free. Must be 21. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Go to mdgamblinghelp.org.
Hey, Baltimore, it's number 10, Arthur Millette, and I'm hoping you'll slot us in all season long for the Arthur Millette Show. We will be traveling around the region all season, giving you the chance to get to know me and my teammates. There will be some football talk and a lot more. You can watch this show live on PressBox's Facebook and YouTube pages and listen every Friday night on 105.7 The Fan. Find out more at PressBoxOnline.com/Millette. The Arthur Millette Show, the only show in town that's a work of art.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland, at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin, and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. There, you just saved money with Easy Pass, all without slowing or receiving a notice in the mail. Well done, thrifty driver, well done. Get your Easy Pass at DriveEasyMD.com.
Visit Harford County this holiday season for a brand new event. You'll feel like you stepped into a holiday movie. Harford Holidays is overflowing with the spirit of the holiday season. You'll be amazed by the jaw-dropping light displays, thrilled by a visit to Santa's workshop, and have the holiday time of your life with sleigh rides, a special vendor village, s'mores making stations, and so much more. It's a holiday light experience, new at Ripken Stadium, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, December 6th through December 22nd. For ticket information, head to visitharford.com. You'll have the happiest holiday season ever.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Tuesday edition of the program. It is semifinal week in the state high school football playoffs, and everything you need to know you can find at countysports.zone. It's countysports.zone, proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. Scores, schedules, brackets. You're starting to make your plans for getting to Annapolis. You want to know when the games are going to be at each level. Find everything you need to know. CountySports.zone, proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. All right, we continue along here on a Tuesday edition of the program, and every Tuesday we talk some college hoops. Joining us now, the Washington Post, USA Lacrosse Magazine, among other locations, and you follow him on Twitter, or Blue Sky now at Discourse, D1S Course. He's our buddy Patrick Stevens. Patrick, good morning, my friend. How are you?
I'm well, Glenn. How are you? I'm sure probably a little sleepy after being up late.
Tired, but that's all right. That's all right. No problems here. Patrick, the way I said it yesterday is I think that all that matters is that Maryland somehow, some way won that basketball game. Like, I don't know that we think that Villanova is very good, but I don't think that it's likely that you're going to be penalized for not having beaten Villanova by more points. I think that all that actually tangibly matters is that they won a game that, as you and I talked about last week, they really needed to win however they had to go about doing it.
Yeah, there's probably a marginal penalty in there when you start looking at some of those various metrics, right? Like the predictive metrics that reward you for beating some teams by 70 more than they reward you for beating other teams by 1. But, Maryland had both of those last week. So got a little from column A and a little from column B. So, yes, Maryland is much better off with a 1-point victory than any kind of loss. And I agree. I think you basically saw what Villanova was down to the letter in that game. They have one really good player who had a monster day in Eric Dixon. They've got a try-hard point guard in Jameer Brickus, who's probably in a little over his head at the Big East level as compared to the A-10 level, because he's a really good player at LaSalle. But he's also not a guy that's going to ultimately doom you. And then you just have a bunch of guys that are just sort of floating around. And so, for Maryland, surviving a career day from Dixon and getting the sort of work that they got from the front court, check the box, move on. And I think if you're Maryland, your real aim at this point, what are they now? Now 5-1. Going into New Year's, which would be the West Coast trip to Oregon and Washington, I think they need to be 11-2.
Mm-hmm.
So that means you've got essentially you win your non-conference home games that remain, and then you get one obvious mulligan against Purdue, and try to get Ohio State and Syracuse in those other 2 games in December. And if you happen to win at Purdue, so much the better. But I think that in terms of simply staying on schedule, what they did Sunday was basically what they needed to do, whether they won by 1 or 10 or 20 or 50.
For as well as Derek Queen played against, Manhattan, with all due respect, it's Manhattan, I feel like Derek Queen sort of taking the game over on that side of the floor the way that he did, and particularly showing off, the jumper, the turnaround, not a shot that I think Maryland fans will forget for a little while. I think that's so much more encouraging about the steps that he might be capable of taking within this one season that it's looking like he's going to be in College Park.
Yeah, I think that you ultimately are seeing why Maryland was so happy to land him. The question I still have is, can he be a consistent game in and game out force for them?
Mm-hmm.
But that having been said, they've played 2 high major opponents, and he's gone for 24-7 against one of them and 22-11 against the other. And then you throw in the fact that there was a little bit of the lights are on for the first time type of thing.
Yep.
I think certainly Maryland can survive him, having, 3 rebounds combined against Florida A&M and Mount St. Mary's. So there are encouraging signs to me anyway that he'll at least be sharp when it really, really matters. Now, that doesn't mean that he can simply turn it on and off, but a game like that certainly gives you reason to think that he's going to be a guy that they're going to be able to move this thing forward, playing around, basically. I think this is a team that, unlike the last couple of years where you just basically had to wait for the point guard to do something, and Jameer Young was really good,
yep.
But, especially last year, he was all they had. This year, it's pretty clear that, when you can get both Queen and Reese going at the same time like they did on Sunday, that's going to give you a fighting chance even when you do find yourself down double digits.
That all said, it doesn't seem like the depth questions are going away anytime soon.
No, they are not. And it's interesting. You got what you wanted, right? You had the big question of when's Rodney Rice going into the starting lineup, and he did. He played 34 minutes the other night. He played, what was it? It doesn't really matter how many minutes he played. He was 24 minutes, 25 minutes against Canisius. But the question I had, the counter I had to the thought of not bringing him off the bench was, well, who's going to score off the bench?
Right. And the answer is nobody.
And the answer appears to be nobody. Now, the interesting thing that Kevin Willard said after the Canisius game was that he wanted to have Deshaun Harris-Smith on that second unit to give them an extra ball handler down there. And I feel like there's a little bit of spin there, where you're sitting there trying to make it in the most delicate way,
right.
case in the most delicate way
possible.
Lift up
a guy publicly. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Right.
But I will say this. Like, if I told you that in 2 games in a week that Deshaun Harris-Smith played 37 minutes, had 8 rebounds, had 6 assists and 1 turnover, and not only that, only took 2 3-pointers in that stretch, I think you would say that's pretty good, right?
Yep.
If you've accepted that he's not going to be what people seem to think he was going to be at this time last year, which was a guy that would stretch the floor and make a lot of threes. Well, if he's out there and he's grabbing rebounds at a decent clip and he's got a 6-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio and he's not really hurting you, is that really the worst thing in the world?
Yeah, that's fair.
So, I would actually say that for him, that's a fairly encouraging week, even if he did only score 7 points in those 2 games combined. If you accept that he's not necessarily going to be a scorer, all the other stuff that he did, including shot selection, wasn't really that bad last week.
I agree. I was talking to Chris Nockey. He still has this belief that Malachi Palmer's game will get him to a place where he can be more serviceable off the bench. And look, Jay Young gave them some minutes that were helpful on Sunday. It was wild. I kept looking, Jay Young's still out there on the floor. How about that? I don't think it's that there's no one that could. It's just that until we see it, it's something that we're going to have to wonder about, because you're going to need, particularly in conference play, you're going to have it.
Yes, and I think, you bring up Jay Young. I mean, that guy at this point in his career is the definition of just stable minutes.
Yeah.
A guy that you can throw out and he'll play 10 to 15 minutes, and he isn't going to hurt you. But he's also not going to have too many games like he had against Canisius where he scored 12 points off the bench. I think that what you got from him against Villanova, which was 11 turnover-free minutes with a 3-pointer thrown in and at a crucial time of that game, because he and Palmer, I think, both hit those 3-pointers within a few minutes of each other. That's what you're going to get. Palmer's kind of the upside guy. And it's clear, from him getting 8 minutes against Villanova that Kevin Willard would like to figure out some way to, coax maybe a little bit more out of him. I know, you're sitting there in a previous version of the world where guys don't have unrestricted free agency. That's a guy that maybe Maryland would have redshirted this season. But instead, it's a situation now where you're trying to figure out a way to give him a little bit more and see if he can help. And I got to tell you, I've actually been fairly impressed with him this month. He's given them a little bit more than I thought he was going to give at this point in the season. So if he can be a guy that comes in and maybe knocks down a couple threes, that would certainly be of great use to Maryland, considering it does not look like there's a whole lot of offense coming off the bench for these guys, at least at this point in the season.
He is Patrick Stevens at Discourse. He is with us here on GCR. Yes, 2 games. I assume there's not really much to be said about the 2 games that Maryland is playing this week.
Probably not. I don't think so. I mean, Bucknell's kind of an interesting team. Noah Williamson, the 7-footer, should be one of the top players in the Patriot League. It's a 4:30 start the day before Thanksgiving. Maybe. Bucknell hasn't been perfect this season. They lost to the Mount at home. They did get a struggling Richmond team at home. Lost by 28 to Kentucky in their only high major game to this point. So I think they could be a nuisance, but Maryland should win that. And then Alcorn State comes in on Sunday, and that's a team that's winless and has lost to a non-Division I team this season. So a team that probably shouldn't pose too much of a threat to the Terps coming out of the holiday. Plus, that's a team coming off a game on Friday too. So they'll have something a little bit similar to Canisius, where they have to travel, maybe a little worn down a little bit. I think that one bodes well for Maryland too.
All right, so from the local standpoint, I know 2 more wins for Towson over the last week. It started to be a rough week for UMBC, although Griffin and I were watching the game yesterday, and all of a sudden in the second half, I don't know, it seemed like something clicked for a little bit there as they pulled away from Howard. Anything that stands out from you from the local front this past week?
Yeah, saw the Towson game at Morgan on Sunday, and that game was just pure survival for Towson. They got up 11 early, let Morgan back into it, had a good run at the end of the first half, and then Morgan just kind of hung around. I mean, Towson's still without Tyler Tejada, so they've won 3 games. They've gotten to 4-2 without their best player. Christian May was hurt for a game last week, and he wasn't quite himself. Dylan Williamson didn't play great against Morgan State, but did make some free throws at the end to seal that game. So Towson's went on the road and won twice. Not an easy task. I don't think anybody was going to, describe that as a Picasso on Sunday. And now they've got to go and play Kent State, Kennesaw State, and UC Irvine. Those are probably all top 150 teams this season. Kennesaw just beat Rutgers on Sunday, so they head off to Alberta to play these 3 games. I'm sure a fun travel situation for the Tigers this week. But if I'm them, aside from the fact that it played poorly at South Carolina, feeling pretty good. And I would tell you the guy that really stood out to me, besides Nendetark, who had a really good game scoring, I thought Mekhi Lowry played fantastic on Sunday. Just really active, had 11 rebounds in that game, had 13 against Nichols earlier in the week. So that's a guy I think that is helping them more and more. Maybe a little foul prone still, but a guy that I think clearly is going to have an impact on these guys. Now, I've seen, as for UMBC, and I was over at UMBC yesterday too, and Bryce Johnson basically took over that game in the second half. They have, first of all, I've seen them twice, and they've looked pretty good both times against Coppin and against Howard now. And I think that one of the keys for them is whenever Ace Valentine plays well, and he did yesterday with 7 assists, they're going to be in decent shape. So, Bryce Johnson, like I said, had a really, really good game for them, knocked down 4 3-pointers, finished with 28 on the day. They finally kind of got in the last 12 minutes or so, they got their offense and defense playing well at the same time. The defense didn't play particularly well earlier in the game, and that was a Howard team that was largely without their best player, Bryce Harris, who played the first couple minutes and then left the game. So, I think if you're UMBC, you're 4-4. You probably wish you could have closed out a couple of those other closer games to this point. They get another day game tomorrow against Morgan State. If they get that and they close out November at 5-4, it's not a bad place for them to be in. At the same time, I think everybody knows, and Jim Ferry will be the first to say it, like, this is all about getting ready for January and February.
Right.
And so, they have some interesting pieces. I'd say the Adunwo kid, the big kid, Josh Adunwo, is also playing pretty well at this point. He ended up with 16 yesterday and 23 on Saturday against BU. Their biggest problem, though, and it's pretty clear, and it didn't cost them against Howard because Howard doesn't have much size. They just aren't very big, and I think that they're going to have to figure out a way to paper over that problem because it just that's not something that they're going to be able to solve anytime soon. Certainly not this year, anyway. I mean, they've got Adunwo at 6'6". They've got Louis Jordan, who's a transfer from Weber State. That's more of a guy that is willing to step outside and take some outside shots. But they don't have much size, and that's the thing that they're going to have to figure out a way to hide or overcome in some way.
And then on the national front, everything, right? It's just that week where there's so much going on that your head spins. And, my God, Maui was the place to be yesterday. Holy crap. I got to watch Memphis, UConn. The bummer of the Ravens game being last night is I didn't get to watch any of Auburn. Well, a little bit of Auburn, Iowa State. And then I actually did flip over to watch a little bit of Dayton, North Carolina afterwards, and both ended up being outstanding games. Are there like 2 or 3 this week that get the like you think are worth focusing at? There's just so much, so many events, so many big games. I don't even know. My head's spinning looking at all of it.
Well, you got Duke and Kansas,
Yep.
and that's not an insignificant one. That game is out in Vegas tonight. The winners bracket in Maui is not a bad place to go take a look at some things. You've got the battle for Atlantis where Gonzaga's down there. They're playing not a great game in the opener. They play West Virginia tomorrow, but then they'll get Indiana or Louisville the next day. So, Indiana Gonzaga on Thanksgiving, not a bad scenario there. So those are a couple of the events that certainly stand out to me at this point. But there's a handful of others. I think Illinois and Arkansas have a game on Thanksgiving. So that's a nice football alternative in the middle of the afternoon. So I think that's also a game to keep an eye on. So you're right. There's no shortage of options. It makes me kind of feel bad that the options around here just aren't quite as palatable as what's going on in some nicer climes at this point.
Yeah, it wouldn't be bad to spend a Thanksgiving night or tonight even. The late night game is Auburn, Carolina tonight out in Maui at 11 o'clock. That wouldn't be a bad place to be. All right, let's play our game. Can Patrick Stevens name the MLB team or the teams that this player or manager has been with? And I begin the way that we have been the last few weeks with a combined player manager and someone who, honest to God, I actually am a little surprised never made an All-Star game just because he was such a helpful piece for a number of teams. He is still a current manager. He's managed 2 teams, one of which he played for. There are 4 other teams that he played for, so it's a combined 6 for a 2-time World Series champion and former NLCS MVP. Craig Counsell is first on the list.
All right. Well, Craig Counsell's 2 managerial teams are Milwaukee and the Cubs.
Of course.
And so he was a Milwaukee Brewer as a player.
Yep, absolutely.
Craig Counsell was a Florida Marlin.
He sure was. Won a World Series with them in '97.
He was a Arizona Diamondback.
Won his other World Series. I had forgotten that he was the NLCS MVP in 2001 with the Diamondbacks. I would have assumed it was Randy Johnson or Kurt Schilling, right? Exactly right. Yes, correct. 100%.
All right. So 2 other stops for Craig Counsell, huh?
Yes, he was a trade deadline acquisition in '99 from between the Marlins and the Diamondbacks, and he actually played parts of the '95 and '97 seasons with this team before he ended up a Marlin.
Okay. Craig Counsell on the early side of his career. That's interesting. Do I remember him being a Cardinal at one point?
Not a Cardinal, no.
Okay. Do I remember him as a Dodger?
You do. That was who acquired him in '99 was the Dodgers. The others, at the beginning of his career, no recollection, but apparently he wanted to be with all the expansion teams. Colorado, '95 and '97 for Craig Counsell. 4-team guy. I could not believe that this guy had 4 teams. I genuinely did not realize it. He did not play this past season. We will see if that means it's over. Jackie Bradley Jr., 4 teams.
Jackie Bradley Jr. Okay, well, obviously Boston.
Of course.
And he was a Brewer, correct?
I got to be honest, Pat, I did not remember any of the other stops for Jackie Bradley Jr., but you are correct. He was a Brewer.
Was he a Toronto Blue Jay?
He was a Toronto Blue Jay. No recollection. None. So.
I'm only having vague recollections of this, so it's not like I'm much further ahead on this. The other Jackie Bradley stop, God.
43 games in 2023 in this place.
23 games in 2023?
43 games.
43 games.
Obviously, huge difference. Now it changes everything.
A massive difference. Kansas City, maybe?
I can't believe this. Kansas City is the answer. That is unreal. How in the hell I don't know. I went 1 for 4 on Jackie Bradley Jr. And then 5-team guy, someone who I think might continue to try playing. He was playing this past season. 2-time All-Star, Yasmani Grandal, the final on the list.
Do you know what happens when you put Yasmani Grandal in a spell check?
I don't. What do you get?
Tasman Granddad?
That's pretty great. That's actually really great. I wish he would wear that for Players Weekend. That would be really wonderful. Oh.
So Tasmani Grandal was, I believe, certainly a Brewer.
Yes. That one was the hardest one for. No, it wasn't the hardest one for me to remember. Never mind.
Yeah,
sorry.
And the White Sox?
Yes, the White Sox.
He was in San Diego, correct?
Yep.
Do I remember him as a Dodger?
Of course, 4 seasons, including an All-Star appearance. And so now it's just, where was he this past season?
Where was Tasmani? Tasmani, there we go. Yasmani Grandal. Oh, gosh. Was he in... That's a good question. Where did he end up this year? Was he up in Minnesota?
No, not in Minnesota. I had forgotten about it. This one was the toughest for me. Pittsburgh was the answer for this past season for Yasmani Grandal. As you mentioned, not a lot going on this week locally. Where are you going to be?
Georgetown tonight against Wagner, Maryland. The doubleheader, UMBC Morgan at UMBC tomorrow, plus Maryland Bucknell. Friday, I'll be at GW. They play VMI. On Saturday, Georgetown has Albany. Sunday at Maryland against Alcorn State. And Monday, probably down at Georgetown. They have UMBC in. So plenty of early looks at UMBC for me in this season, as well as plenty of looks at Georgetown early in this season.
Maybe Ed Cooley will go after other programs in his post-game press conference. That
was a different moment. And it just, I think some of it is a matter of kind of knowing that he's personality-wise, he's just the sort that he's kind of a product of where he's from, right? He's a guy from New England, and so he's a little brash that way. So and so I think as somebody that's been around him a little bit over the last year or so, it kind of initially just sort of I was willing to kind of brush it off at that point because okay, whatever. But yeah, there were obviously some people that were none too pleased of him taking a not very veiled shot at Illinois for really not a good reason.
Yeah, correct. Exactly right. All right, Patrick, happy Thanksgiving, my friend. Always appreciate you. Let me know if you're in my neck of the woods. I have no idea what my plans are. We will talk again next Tuesday. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Take care.
That's Patrick Stevens with us every Tuesday. Yeah, it was very weird. Ed Cooley, I don't even remember who the player is, but he has a transfer from Illinois on his roster. And after the game that he played I don't even know who they played, he just went after, it was Jaden Epps is the player. It's almost like he's a new player. It's something I saw in him his freshman year when he played for that other bullshit school. What the?
He said that into a microphone?
Yes, in a press conference.
Nice.
Wild.
I mean, it's not like I had a problem with Ed Cooley. Now I'm definitely an Ed Cooley fan.
I mean, yeah, I don't like Illinois and Maryland have kind of had a thing these last couple of years where, like, bizarrely Maryland's had Illinois' number despite them.
Well, I mean, I think I just whatever school he said it.
Oh, you're good with it?
Yeah,
like you just want
that?
I
just respect it.
Okay,
yeah.
fair enough.
Yeah.
It was so weird. What a weird. Like, what possible?
Just talk about Towson, that bullshit
right?
school.
Just calls everybody. It becomes his thing. Like now that I actually would be here for is if he just called everyone a bullshit. Like I just don't understand why Illinois. Like, what is the history there that I don't know about? And to Patrick's point, like maybe it is just Ed Cooley. Like there's nothing personal. It's just that's who he is. It was just so random. Like what? What is this beef between Ed Cooley and Illinois? Like where does that come from? So weird. But yeah, maybe we need more of that in college. Have you seen the Heisman House commercial with Steve Spurrier? They aired it last night. Well, I don't know. I'm on the stream. I don't know if they did it on TV or not. But they do the Heisman.
I think they did because me and my friend were talking about the Baltimore Cravens commercial.
Oh, there was a lot of that. Boy, they were really leaning into the Baltimore Cravens. And the first time they ran it, it couldn't have been worse timing. Like it was like a 10-0 game at that point. The Ravens are doing nothing right. We're all worried about Justin Tucker. Like it just did not hit in that moment. Like it very much felt like this is what you're worried about. This is what you're wasting your time on. Now again,
Doing the Baltimore Cravens.
we overreacted. It wasn't worth it. There's a Heisman House commercial right now where Steve Spurrier shows up in gator boots, and Tim Tebow is worried that they're made out of his friend, the mascot. And so he starts calling the mascot, and the mascot isn't answering because he's playing video games, and Tim's very panicked about his buddy, the mascot, that Steve Spurrier might be wearing boots made out of the mascot, right? Like, that's the premise of the commercial. It's fine as commercials go. Like, it's not particularly memorable, but it made me realize how badly I miss Steve Spurrier in college football. Like, Steve Spurrier was a guy that, like, you'd be annoyed by, like, you'd roll your eyes at, but he made college football better. Just his all you can't.
Okay, I see now because they're literally made out of like the fabric of
right,
the,
like yes,
of the costume.
Yes, so you like it's a whole. It's fine. It's fine. It's a fine commercial. It's nothing. I don't. The point of this is not the commercial. The commercial's only fine, but Steve Spurrier ruled. Steve Spurrier saying you can't spell citrus without UT to take shots at Peyton Manning. We need that. Where is that? And I don't know why, but I always liked Peyton Manning when he was in college. Like, I wanted him to win a national championship. I think just because Florida was kind of dominant, and I was like,
Gotcha.
I just wanted
to.
It was that I wanted somebody else to win.
He's babyface, you know?
And yeah, exactly right. Ironically, they didn't win until the year after Peyton Manning left, and then all of a sudden T. Martin won a national championship for him, and we don't talk about that. Like, it was T. Martin that was the guy. But the point being, like, I just had that moment where I'm like, damn it. How much better was our life when we had Steve Spurrier just saying anything, just taking shots at people for no reason, just shooting from the hip. God, life was so good then. Now all we get is, like, James Franklin not answering questions. Like, there's just no – the personality is just dead. We lost Jim Harbaugh, and, like, no one has stepped up into that role. This is the perfect –
what you don't realize is that
this week would be so wonderful to have college football coaches talking S to each other, but they won't do it. They're all terrified of it being what they're associated with, right? Like, well, we that's not the type of program we run. Steve Spurrier would S on everyone. All these guys want to be Lou Holtz. They're just so good. I don't know what we're gonna do. I don't know. God, the College of Holy Cross. That's just a hell of a program, man. Like, how they all want to be Lou Holtz. Who was the guy that was the coach at Coastal Carolina? It was like, we need more dogs. I need that guy. Where's that guy? I need him. We need more of them in our lives. We need Steve Spurrier. I miss Steve Spurrier. Come back to us. Could you imagine this week everybody talking S about each other? Nobody's talking S about Indiana. None of these coaches. They all should be going after him.
It was David Bennett.
David Bennett, that guy. We need David Bennett.
We need more dogs.
We need Mike Gundy.
Less cats.
Mike Gundy, we kind of, he got rammed by his cow, and he wouldn't go on camera a couple weeks ago. And so that was fun. I mean, not for him, obviously. That's terrible for him. But for the rest of us, we were like, wow, that's a story. We need Mike Gundy. We need, who was the coach at Boise State who was Intramural's brother? Go play Intramural's brother. We need that guy. Where are those guys? What happened to this sport that I love? What happened?
Well, Ed Cooley's trying to bring it back.
That's why I'm gonna be with you about it. If that's what Ed Cooley's doing, is trying to bring it back, I'm in. It's weird that it's just a one-off. Like
Dan Hawkins, is that
Dan Hawkins, 100%. Go play Intramurals, brother. Such a great line. I was working for the Arizona Rattlers at the time. And they had a backup quarterback who had played at Boise State for Dan Hawkins.
Oh, was it Colorado State or was it Boise State?
I think it was at Colorado maybe when he said it.
Okay.
When he said it, he might have been at Colorado State. But he definitely he had coached at Boise State. And this guy, it's not Spencer Dinwiddie because that's the basketball player. There was a quarterback named Dinwiddie who had played at Boise State, and he was the backup.
Two guys named Dinwiddie?
Yeah, I know. I didn't know it was allowed. I want to say Ryan Dinwiddie maybe. Was the quarterback at Boise State, and he had played for Dan Hawkins. And, like, we were – I don't know if we had a media – we had some event that day for the Rattlers when I was working for them. I want to say it was a media day. And it was a day that, like, SportsCenter was running that clip nonstop. Like, it was just such fodder. And that dude was losing it because that was his coach, and he was like, that's my guy. Yeah, go play intramurals, brother. Not a perfect line. Oh, we need more. We need it. Give me that.
Oh man, he only was on the Arizona Rattlers AFL team for 3 weeks.
Huh? How about that? Was it Ryan Dinwiddie?
It was Ryan Dinwiddie.
Now that.
Good job.
I feel like I should get a Patrick Stevens game
Good
point
job
for that.
Yeah. All right, so name all the teams.
yeah. Ryan Dinwiddie, not a chance in hell. I didn't realize
one NFL team.
I didn't know him well. We weren't close, but I didn't realize he was only on the team for 3. Is that true, or was it like
did
he maybe get hurt?
So
and he
joined the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in 2006. Winnipeg's head
But they
coach.
play in the summer, and
with Dinwiddie's playing time came in early 2006, and then something. Okay, he hurt his ankle, and then during the off season, before the CFL, the 07 CFL season. He tried to join it says he attempted to join the Arizona Rattlers of the Arena.
Okay, he was definitely on the team.
Lasting for 3 weeks with the Rattlers before learning that his CFL contract precluded him from playing.
I don't remember that at
during
all.
the 07 AFL.
Now, in fairness, he wasn't the starting quarterback, so it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But I don't remember that at all. Oh, I can't believe if anybody is listening to this, what the hell are they doing? The great Cedric Bonner was the quarterback of the Arizona Rattlers, AFL Arena Football League Hall of Famer. Cedric Bonner who was also on the Falcons NFC Championship team. Clearly was not their quarterback. That was Chris Chandler, if I remember correctly, when they got blown out by the Broncos in the Super Bowl. Just saying, random facts this morning. That's what we're doing.
Cedric Bonner played from 93 to 07.
Cedric Bonner was an icon in indoor football, man. He was a AFL legend, dog. He was the definition of a legend in the Arena Football League.
Randy Gatewood.
The great Randy Gatewood. How about Hunky Cooper?
Yeah.
God, man.
Those are they have three retired numbers. Cedric Bonner, Hunky Cooper.
We had some dogs in Arizona.
Randy Gatewood.
It was a good time in my life. I loved doing the Arizona Rat. It wasn't a traditional. I was the quote unquote sideline reporter, but the games were broadcast on KUPD, the rock station. So they didn't want us to do a game broadcast because they're like, nobody would listen to that. What they did is they had the morning show from KUPD, which was John Holmberg, who
of course.
Well, Holmberg, ironically, has been and his sidekick is a guy named Brady. They were in a lot of the Frank Caliendo sketches that you would see on ESPN over the years because they were Frank lived in Arizona. That's how I became friends with Frank Caliendo years ago. And so the bit was they were going to be they were going to be the broadcast team for the Arizona Rattlers games. With they'll kind of do play-by-play, but it's also just going to be their show at night during a football game. It was a great bit. I mean, it was brilliant, truly, to do it this way because it got them a ton of attention that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise in the market. And I was working at a station across the hall, and they were like, "Hey, we kind of need sports people to make this legitimate. Would you come over and be the sideline reporter?" And I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Also, there's no sideline. You're just going to be."
In the stands?
Well, they were doing the games from a bar in the arena, which was also part of the bit, right? Come hang out with Holmberg's Morning Sickness during the Rattlers games to get more people to come out. It was really great marketing. And I just sat next to them, but they would be like, "Now let's go down to Glenn Clark on the sideline," and I would make something up. That was the bit. I would be like, and I'd try to think of an example. I remember we were also pushing they wanted us to push the limits. David Boston, who had played for the Cardinals, was a bust as a wide receiver. Was a great wide receiver at Ohio State, a legendary receiver at Ohio State. Early pick of the Cardinals, was a bust. He was now playing for some crap team, San Jose Sabercats or something like that. David Boston was in the Arena Football League, which was wild from who David Boston was. And I remember we did all right, now to set the scene down on the sideline, let's go to our guy Glenn Clark. I was had a chance to catch up with former Cardinal David Boston before the game. He said he loved his time in Arizona. When I asked him what he missed the most, he said the meth. That was a legitimate. That was a thing because that's what they wanted. They wanted that. They wanted it to be that type of broadcast. And there was also 2006 or 7 or whatever the hell year it was. There were things that we could get away with that we certainly could not get away with in 2024. And wouldn't be doing.
Silent reporter says.
Yeah, because player did a bunch of math, right? You're definitely not going to be doing that in 2024. But in this, you were doing it, and everybody, it was this wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We know it's not legitimate. We know it's a kind of a fake broadcast. But damn, it was fun. Oh my God, it was so much fun. Oh, I couldn't have had a better time doing that. All right. Well, there's what I had to offer this morning. That's my deep analysis of the Ravens' win over the Chargers.
All right. Thank you.
David Boston and Ryan Dinwiddie. And I miss Steve Spurrier. I just went on a real old man thing there. That was an old man. No, that was a big time old man thing.
It was a solid play.
I miss Steve Spurrier, Dan Hawkins. That was what I had to offer here, and it all came from Ed Cooley mouthing off.
Thanks, Ed Cooley.
We come back in. We will go over pats on the ass. Who deserves most praise for the Ravens' performance last night?
And we'll catch up with Joe Serpico as well.
I thought that was 11:40.
I believe we're gonna do 11:20.
All right then. Fine. We'll do Joe Serpico first, and then we'll do pats on the ass. Fine. Have it your way, Griffin. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. Learn more at DriveEasyMD.com.
PressBox's Project Game Day is the place to be after every game this season. Join Glenn Clark, Rita Hubbard, Super Bowl 35 champion Femi Adebayo, and our cast of regulars as they break down what happened, why it mattered, and what it means moving forward. You can watch the show at PressBoxOnline.com/gameday or PressBox's Facebook and YouTube pages. Project Game Day is brought to you by the Green Turtle Sportsbook in Towson and Canton, Easy Pass, and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org. So join us for Project Game Day after every game day this football season at PressBoxOnline.com/game day.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their amazingly scrumptious, fat, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. Every season is crab season at Costas, so make your plans now by calling 410-477-1975 and reserve your taste of heaven. Sit back, crack some crabs, and watch the Ravens chase down another title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday nights, Costas offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30, and there are nightly specials Monday through Friday. So head on down to the Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Brace yourselves for an unparalleled in-person betting experience at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook and Bars in Canton and Towson. Experience the thrill of live betting with Baltimore's only state-of-the-art Vegas viewing TV experience. Choose between their on-site tellers or the convenience of their self-bet kiosks to place your bets. And now stop by the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton every Wednesday for a free $10 bet. Just show up, sign up, and get your $10 bet for free. Must be 21. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Go to mdgamblinghelp.org.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Tuesday edition of the program. Get your tickets now for the Ed Block Courage Award Foundation Holiday Party on December 9th at the Evolved Hospitality Catering Hall in Falston, with special guest host Zay Flowers. The event includes a live podcast show, audience Q&A, meet and greet, and photo op with the Raven Star wide receiver. Enjoy tailgate buffet from 3-time Best of Baltimore chef Zach Trabold, of the renowned The Local restaurants. Donate a toy to support the children at St. Vincent's Villa and receive an autographed picture from Zay. Tickets are $100 each and available now at bidpal.net/Holiday24. Going to be a great event. The Ed Block Courage Award Foundation's Holiday Party, December 9th at the Evolved Hospitality Catering Hall in Fallston. Every Tuesday, we preview what's ahead on Waiver-Wire Wednesday. Joining us now, he is PressBox's fantasy football analyst, Joe Serpico. Joe, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Guys, how we doing? Just counting down the hours until no more work, and I get to stuff my face in with football and food the rest of the week.
Best week of the year, no doubt about that. All right, so, Joe, I don't know what to make of. The part of the deal with having to make these decisions, I guess we start in Los Angeles where we saw J.K. Dobbins leave the game last night. Does it make Gus Edwards a must-pick-up for Dobbins owners? Does it make him a must-pick-up for anyone? Is it a fab money? Is it a, hey, if you don't own Dobbins, maybe wait this out and see what the actual story is with Dobbins? Like, what do you do there?
I think this is a situation where you do got to go out and get Edwards and spend fab money to get him, regardless whether you are a Dobbins owner or not. A knee injury to Dobbins, we don't know how serious it is just yet, but we also have seen Gus Edwards in this offense before, with the jokes being that is Baltimore out west there. And I've already had people say, is Kamani Vidal a guy that you want to maybe kind of consider? I'm not even considering that whatsoever. He was inactive yesterday. It looks like Hassan Haskins has passed him on the depth chart there. Yeah. So, but yeah, Edwards is definitely somebody who becomes a must-add just based on whatever happened to Dobbins there. Hopefully it's not as significant because, it kind of sucks. It seems like we have a thing with him every year. We just kind of wish him the best out there.
How much fab are you spending on Gus Edwards if you're a Dobbins owner and if you're not?
If you're a Dobbins owner, and that's the thing, it all depends, this time of year, how much fab money do you really have left? Right. But if you have, let's say you have more than 20% of your fab left, I would go 15%, especially if we come to find out that this is, by the end of the day, we find out it's more significant. I'm going to try to get him as my last big pickup for the year, just because, let's face it, Gus Edwards, he's not going to offer anything as a pass catcher. We know that. But the Chargers are still going to run the ball a ton, and we know now, instead of him splitting carries at the goal line with Dobbins and Edwards, now we know it's just going to be Edwards 100% when we get down to the goal line.
What about the situation in Washington? Austin Eckler leaves with a concussion. Brian Robinson's hurt. Is there a world where you're putting waivers in for Jeremy McNichol or Rodriguez? Are you spending fab money, or is that more of a wait and see because there's just too many questions about both of those guys?
That's a little bit more of a wait and see just because, concussions this year have been weird. We've seen cases where the guys come back the next week, and we've seen other cases where they've been out for 2 to 3 weeks. So with the whole Eckler situation, it's kind of up in the air, and I have a feeling that if he does clear, that's the guy you want. Brian Robinson, who's left the game twice, and now you don't know what's going to be his situation there. My thing would be if Robinson is out, I'm picking up McNichol regardless because Eckler's always going to be used more as a pass catcher. If they're both out, McNichol's definitely kind of a must-add. And kind of what the comparison I did was similar to last week. People were like, why would you want to pick up Amir Abdullah last week?
Right.
It worked out. He was running back 9 this past week. So, opportunity is knocking for McNichols is there. So the thing is, we won't find out just how banged up he is until Sunday, or both of those guys are, I should say, until Sunday. So McNichol's a guy that I am spending a little bit of fab, see how it plays out. But again, even if he does play, it is a 1-week wonder because the next week the Commanders are on a bye.
Right. I guess that's the question too. Is that only is that something you're really doing if you're not an owner of either of those other running backs? Are you really spending fab money on McNichols for 1 week where we don't even know if he's going to have a big role for that 1 week?
No, and that's why it's if you're going to do it, it's literally, if you need the running back, I'll throw maybe a buck or two at it, but otherwise, it's one of those waiver claims where I'm not even putting $1 in it. I'm trying to get the waiver claim, but I'm not using any fab on it, if you get what I'm saying.
No, I completely understand that. And then where are we with you bring up the Raiders, where are we with that situation after Abdullah had a nice game? What do you make of that?
Well, that's the situation. If you have Abdullah, you definitely got to hold on to him because the Raiders have the quick turnaround where they play on Friday. So Madison and Zamir White get held out once again. And if that's the case, Abdullah once again becomes a flex-worthy play. So if you have Abdullah, you absolutely hold on to him. If you come to find out, let's say, we find out on Wednesday or Thursday that either or, whether it be Madison or Zamir White is active, then maybe you probably do away with Abdullah, but you're definitely holding on to him for right now and potentially starting him. Because like I said, his thing was he's always going to be a good pass catcher. We knew he wasn't going to get anything on the ground last week, but he's one of those guys that's going to, make an impact as a pass catcher. And that's why guys like him can be very fantasy relevant, especially this time of year.
Joe Serpico, PressBoxOnline.com, with us here on GCR, brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel. Joe, if I could, let's go to Kansas City, and I think there's two different things to talk about. Last week we talked about, what do you do if Isaiah Pacheco comes back? Well, he doesn't. So now with them playing on Friday, do we still expect that there's going to be more of a split with Kareem Hunt if Pacheco plays, or now that they gave him the extra week, do we assume that it's back to sort of being the bulk Pacheco and not really any value for Hunt if Pacheco plays?
Yeah, that's going to be a tough situation because the matchup is juicy going against the Raiders. You pretty much want to employ everybody you've got when the Raiders are in town, but we just don't know how this is going to kind of play out. I think, at least for the first opening game, I think we're going to still see more of a 50-50 split. I do think over time, once we get into let's say our fantasy playoffs, it's going to start to shift to where Pacheco is your one. And Hunt will be, I don't want to say he's going to serve as the pass catching role. I think he'll have almost similar to a role that we saw him have when he was in Cleveland with Chubb. I think that's kind of how it's going to play out when we get to that stage. But at least for this week, I think I'm still willing to put Hunt in as, let's say, as a flex play. If he's your RB2, I'm a little bit worried, but as a flex play, I can do that. Pacheco, that's kind of hard to see how that's going to play out. If you have them, you're probably playing them, but ideally you hold it off one more week.
If Pacheco plays, would you rather play Kareem Hunt or Nick Chubb, for example? Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go Chubb just because I think he gets more opportunity there. But again, even the situation in Cleveland, I think we're not realizing how much more of a 50-50 split that's becoming too. Chubb he's out there, but he just doesn't look like his
yeah, but he had two touchdowns against a good defense last week.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. Let's put it that way. It's just more of like, again, I think it's very similar to what I just mentioned. Ford is still getting some look there. They're not trying to give all the work to Chubb. So I think it's not with the Chubb that we want it to be. If you were truly holding on to Chubb and thinking he was just going to be this bona fide star down the stretch, it just hasn't played out that way yet.
And then what about how do we talk about Noah Gray now, right? Like, because I know that we've been dismissive and that we've not wanted to overreact when he's had decent games, but it definitively feels like a thing, and it's starting to feel like he's a better option than somebody that you might be otherwise playing it. Like, right now in my Evan Ingram league, I am really starting to think about Noah Gray.
I had a gut feel. I was thinking about because I'm pretty sure Griffin asked me about him last week. So when I saw him score 2 touchdowns, I was like, well, I know that's coming on Tuesday. That's the whole thing, though. Like, yeah, he's getting all this opportunity. He's getting way more opportunity as of late than Travis Kelce, which is a little bit out there. But can you really bank on a second tight end on an offense? Well, we were willing to do it earlier this year when it was the Ravens, so I can't see why we're not going to do it at this point in the season with the Chiefs. The way they're so banged up a receiver, it just becomes that Gray has become another receiver for them, essentially. Right. So am I starting Noah Gray over Evan Ingram? I mean, I'm an Evan Ingram owner in another league. I traded Darnell Mooney for Evan Ingram, which I'm now regretting. So, yeah, I kind of feeling your pain on Evan Ingram. But Noah Gray, at this stage, I'll take a Noah Gray. I think last week you were asking me about a Theo Johnson.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going Noah Gray over Theo Johnson right now. I'll probably put him around, let's say, somewhere in the range of 15 to 20 just because of so much looks he's been getting as of late. And then we've talked about just how bad tight end's been this year.
Oh, there's another league where my Kyle Pitts is my guy, and I'd be thinking about Noah Gray, right? Like that's
I can't fault you there.
That's just where we are. I think Taysom Hill is still available in that league too, so I think I might go.
Must grab. He's available in 45% of leagues, and I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's the difficulty. I saw that you write about. That's the difficulty of bye weeks, right? Like that sometimes when you have 6 teams on bye, you're gonna have to let somebody go in order to fill a roster. That's just the way that it tends to go. All right, go ahead, Griffin.
I don't know. Is Dontavian Wicks, like if you're dying at a wide receiver with the Romeo Doubs injury, is there any scenario where you go out and pick up Dontavian Wicks?
He was in the piece that I put today as one of my favorite sleepers at wide receivers. I'm not putting any fab in for him, but yeah, he is somebody. You'll probably see him in my DFS lineups later on this week, but if you're truly desperate at receiver. See, the thing about this week is every team is playing. So, like, some of these deeper plays, even though the 2 receivers that I put in the article, like, they're super deeper plays, just because we got a full slate of games this week. It's next week when we have, again, 6 teams on a bye, when things get a little bit dicey. And then, guys, next week is the final week of the regular season for most teams or most leagues.
All right. Anything? Go ahead.
And then what about Nick Westbrook-Akine, too, if we're looking at bottom of the barrel wide receivers here?
So he's the one that if you're looking for somebody that's like a deep flyer, yeah, he's the kind of the guy I'm eyeing up actually as of late. He's got the touchdowns in 6 of the last 7. But what I like even more is they've got a very favorable schedule down the stretch. They get the Jaguars 2 more times. They get the Bengals once. They get the Commanders as well, and I'm missing another team. But they're all basically pass defenses that are in the bottom half of the league. So he's definitely a guy that I got my radar on. Again, like that's more for next week. When we're going to need a filler. If you need him in the playoffs, you're kind of doomed. But somebody you can kind of employ next week in a do or die situation.
Would you roster him over Quentin Johnston moving forward?
Yeah, I mean that's just personal bias after seeing that drop last night. I mean, he's just getting more looks too. I mean, he's just getting more opportunity. He's not getting the huge yardage, but he's just getting more targets as well. So yeah, he's definitely. I'm about done with Johnson. He was one of those guys that I was big on coming this year. He gets me every now and then, makes me think he's finally turning the corner, and then he does what he did last night.
All right, what else should be on our radar as we go into this week?
So I kind of mentioned for how next week we got the 6 teams on a bye. So there's a couple quarterbacks, higher profile quarterbacks. You got your Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels that will be on a bye next week. So let's say you are an owner of one of those guys and you need a backup quarterback for next week. Grab them this week. You don't want to be fighting your other league mates next week for that. The same goes for a lot of people do that with tight ends as well. So let's say you just have Mark Andrews on your team. Make sure you grab your tight end this week. You don't want to get yourself in a bidding war against somebody else next week.
All right. At Joe Serp is how you follow him. Everything is at PressBoxOnline.com. Joe Serpico, always appreciate you, buddy. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you next Tuesday.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Thanks for having me.
Joe Serpico, PressBoxOnline.com, fantasy football analyst with us here, courtesy of Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. And Griffin, that means we need to know what's going on at Live Casino and Hotel.
You know what's going on. You're getting $7 in free slot play at Live Casino for every touchdown that is scored during home games for Baltimore and Washington's football teams this season. Live Rewards members who have their Live Rewards card inserted into the slot machine, any slot machine on the floor, and you have to be actively playing in order to get your prize. But once those touchdowns score, $7 in free slot play. Adderall Mills must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, it's time for us to get into Pats on the Ass. Normally on Mondays. This week, God, I cannot believe there's going to be a week where we're going to do Pats on the Ass on Monday and Thursday. It looks like. Christmas week is really going to be a problem. It's going to be a dramatic. Thanks, NFL. Really appreciate you. Great stuff. Just phenomenal stuff. Putting 2 football games on a Wednesday afternoon. Bang up stuff. Couldn't have done that the 26th. That's the thing that's driving me
own Christmas
nuts.
now. What are you talking about?
They couldn't have just done it on the 26th. They couldn't have said, hey, we're going to make the 26th our day. We're going to have 3 games on Thursday that week. Like, I'm going to shake my shillelagh at you. Thou shalt not pass!
Guess what? Everyone's going to be happy that they got football on Christmas Day, though.
God, it's annoying. Anyway.
We're just servants to them.
Moral of the story. Let's do it. Pats on the ass. Somebody's getting a $50 gift card. Getting some responses in on Blue Sky. Love that. We're going to have how's that coming along, Griffin? How's it working? You figuring out a way to get us on both?
I mean, yeah, I don't have my
Let's
degree in this.
redouble
but
our efforts on that. All right? Let's make that a priority this week to be able to.
I mean, no one has a solution yet. Is the thing.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true.
Oh, then who? Can I get in touch with them? Like,
I don't know.
Has it
But
figured
you're
out?
gonna figure it out.
Well, how can you say you don't think it's
You're
true?
because I've heard people discuss this.
We're making
topic.
sweeping generalizations now.
I said I don't think. I didn't say I know. I said I don't think that's true based on the conversations that I have been a part of. But that
Okay,
doesn't.
well, let me talk to them then.
Okay, that's fine. I'll see if I can't get you in touch with somebody. But in the meantime, you can continue working on it. We will get anybody who gets in on Twitter or Blue Sky at Glenn Clark Radio, or if you find another way to get in, you can always just use those. You'll be registered to win a $50 gift card to the Costas Inn, and that's $50 at the Costas Inn. So I think that's all you need to know.
Pretty solid.
Pick 5 Ravens. 2 must be offensive players. 2 must be defensive players. The 5th can be another offensive player, another defensive player, a special teams player, or a coach. Rank them 5-1, with number 1 being your man of the match. And that's what we got for Pats on the ass. And I will tell you that the back 2 spots on my a bunch of spots on my list were tough. This was a tough list this week. Number 5 was my second defensive player. I wanted to go Chris Board. I really did, because I thought he was extremely good on the pass downs, but I kind of want to give some love to Nate Wiggins here, just because you saw early on like his ability to make plays. You saw, and the problem being, obviously everybody's frustrated by the penalty on the punt. Like, that's infuriating that after Nate Wiggins makes this great play, he follows it up with a 15-yard penalty on a punt. That's infuriating. But
however, the way the game works.
Well, he's special teams in that situation, so it doesn't count.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Right, yeah. He doesn't count. That the special teams penalty does not account.
I'm saying the way the game works.
Right, yeah. We get to ignore it.
Doesn't matter.
Because it has nothing to do with what he did defensively.
He could have had 15 special teams penalties.
Probably
and
not.
he'd still be on the list.
I probably
is what you're saying.
I wouldn't be capable of that. But yes, as far as what he did defensively, he was outstanding. Nate Wiggins is my number
5. Yeah, he's gonna be on my list too. I went with Malik Harrison as my number 5.
Much higher on my list.
The reason I couldn't put him higher is just because that first drive was so shaky, and I didn't love at the end of the first half when the Chargers only had 20 seconds to try to get upfield and into field goal range. And on the final play, they went right across the middle, and Malik Harrison. I mean, I know it was also like that was the coverage that they were in, but the ball went right in front of his face.
It was tipped twice. Like, I can't get worked up. They did. A lot of people were worked up about the call. Like, the call was they got what they wanted out of the call. It's just that the ball was whipped in so much that it didn't matter that it was tipped.
Then he really turned it around in the second half, and they settled in. It helped that J.K. Dobbins wasn't in the game anymore, and they didn't really target the tight ends anymore, going up the middle, going through the middle of the field anymore either. But yeah, Malik Harrison ended up having a really, really big game and helped contain the run, as well as get a little bit of pressure as well at times on Herbert. So yeah, Malik Harrison certainly on the list as my number 5, and then
you got Wiggins.
Yeah, Wiggins was my number 4. Yeah, I mean, it felt like this was a massive test. I felt like the secondary was the bigger story defensively for the Ravens, and I wanted the Tre'Davious White certainly had a case to potentially be on the list. You mentioned Chris Board and what he was doing in coverage at linebacker. Adafioye was another guy who I definitely considered to put on the list defensively. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think it was Nate Wiggins playing over 3/4 of the snaps. They were really picking on him too. According to PFF, he was targeted 10 times. He did allow 5 catches, but it's not, as we were talking with Emory Hunt, he didn't really get his top blown off. He defended well on the deep targets. So yeah, 2 big PBUs as well. So Nate Wiggins was my number 4.
My number 4, I wanted to get cute here. I wanted to go with one of the big uglies. I thought about Pat Ricard. I really wanted my second offensive player to be something that involved a little more thought, but to pretend like Lamar Jackson wasn't deserving of being on the list is sort of us doing we're doing the most. We're basically being like, well, Lamar's so good that last night he wasn't as great as he was in other games, so we're going to leave him off the list. Like, I can't do that. Lamar belongs on the list. Lamar, yes, early on was shaky, was missing throws in the early stages of the game. Don't know why, can't explain it. But bounced back quite nicely, made very good throws.
He started 1 for 5?
Yeah, it was really weird.
Then finished 16 for 22 overall.
Correct.
So,
like that, we can nitpick still, and the thing will end up being the field goal drive, where on first down, he's got 13 yards in front of him, and instead he throws to Zay Flowers, who is not open. I don't get that. Don't get that a little bit. And then obviously on second down, he tries to run, and he just bounces it out to his left. There's yards again to be had there, but he didn't. He tried to go up the middle and right. Like that sequence of 2 plays, if you wanted to nitpick, you'd say what happened there, but Lamar's deserving. He's number 4.
Yeah, I mean, from the second quarter on, he was pretty much perfect. And yeah, I mean, it was a very ho-hum 3-touchdown Lamar Jackson game. And yeah, he again continues to dominate in primetime. So yeah, Lamar Jackson is number 3.
Number 3 for you. My number 3 is Derrick Henry. He didn't have a touchdown. That bum. I was on VSiN last night, and I said, like, I feel like you put a Derrick Henry anytime touchdown in all of your parlays if you're. Like,
yeah.
It's not worth making the bet alone because it's like 2-1 at this point.
Maybe you got a boost or something.
Like you got to put it in all your parlays. But the other ones that I hit on, I definitely had a Mark Andrews anytime touchdown.
Well done.
And I did have Derrick Henry over. I think it was 88 yards that they had for him. Like, come on. Although when they got down 10-0, I didn't know. I just didn't know if they would remain committed. And then the other one I threw out, which is a bummer, is I had J.K. Dobbins' number was like 44.5, which he would have obviously had no problem getting past, but left the game late in the second quarter. So mixed bag last night for what I put out on VSiN. But all that being said, yeah, Derrick Henry, it was great. Derrick Henry is number 3 for me. I'll keep going then because you gave your number 3.
Oh, you had Lamar 4.
Yeah, Lamar 4, Derrick Henry 3. Malik Harrison is my number 2. He's my number 2 on my list just because of expectation versus, this definitely is a grading on a curve situation where, like, my biggest concern going into the game was the middle of the field without Roquan Smith being out there. And, like, Malik Harrison does not have the speed that you would necessarily want from a traditional inside linebacker, but he's a thumper, man. Like, he hits. I don't know that this is Malik Harrison becoming a football player. There's some world where I feel like this is Malik Harrison earning money with another team in the future, joining the litany of Ravens linebackers that have done that over the years. But Malik Harrison was great. He's my number 2.
I went with the coach here at number 2. I went with John Harbaugh as my number 2. Maybe he needs to act like he's coaching against his brother every single week, and that just gives him a little extra edge. And obviously, we've been very critical of him throughout the season, rightfully so. But you got to give him. I feel like we have to give him his flowers here. I was a huge fan of the 4th and 1 go for it call from the 16, and obviously they do end up getting it, and it set the tone for the rest of the game. It was just it was a great design too. You have your 3 biggest skill position guys with Andrews and then Derrick Henry and Pat Ricard doing the tush push and bulldozing, and it was pretty unstoppable. I think that was just a really massive call, and it set the tone for the rest of the game. And they never got away from the run at any point. I had a good stat here. Just a very interesting or a very surprising stat. Hold on, make sure I get it right. The Ravens have trailed 10-0 5 times this season. They've trailed at 10-0 or maybe not 10-0, but they've trailed by 10 points at 5 different points during the season. They are 4-1 in those games. The rest of the league is 18-130. The Ravens are 4-1, trailing by 10 points. I mean,
great. Now, again, like that's part of the you like that they can check the box. They're capable of winning games in different ways. They're capable of winning as front runners. They're capable of winning. There's still the thing about them blowing leads that will creep into your mind from time to time. But if we're being fair, it's been a while, right? Like since the first couple weeks of the season.
They're due.
Don't say that out loud. Don't say that out loud. Like, that wasn't the story of the Browns game. That wasn't the story of the Steelers game. They did lose 2 games, but they didn't lose them that way. Like, that's the story of the Raiders game, and it started to be the story of the Cowboys game, but they righted that ship, and it was the story a couple times last year. But that hasn't really been the story of the 2024 Ravens. They've won games in different ways. They've won as bullies. They've won coming from behind. They've shown that they have more paths to victory than they had previously. And look, John Harbaugh's number 1 for me. And it is a reflection of that. It's also a reflection of adjustments that were made in game. And that in the same way that we want to beat up John Harbaugh for some of that stuff, like, I don't know that he had anything to do with their staying committed to Derrick Henry in the run game despite being down by 10. But I know that if they hadn't, we would have beaten him up for it. We would have said, what the hell is he doing? Why doesn't he grab somebody? So if they did it, then we have to consider the possibility that maybe he did say, like, hey, whatever's going on, stay committed to the ground game. Let's not get away from it. And then defensively, it didn't look good early on, but they made adjustments. All in all, this was a masterclass from John Harbaugh as head coach is concerned. So, yeah, John Harbaugh to me was number 1 from last night. And, again, the headline, of course, being the 4th and 1 from your own 16.
Yeah. And then my number 1, I decided to go with Derrick Henry as my number 1. I mean, yeah, just again, the perfect closer.
He didn't score touchdowns. It's a shameful pick.
You think
shameful
so?
Pick.
Maybe if I put Justice Hill, would that be okay?
Yeah, that'd be all right.
That would be okay. He did have a good blitz.
He only got
times,
14 fantasy points last night. Like, come on.
Like, I was so
Didn't catch
hopeful.
A ball. Didn't catch a ball. Didn't catch one.
I was so hopeful when, because I told you I was up by 10, and then when I was going against Derrick Henry, and when he when Justice Hill broke that touchdown, I was like, oh my god! And then I looked up and I was like, oh, he's already 120 yards. It doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, like the perfect closer, the stiff arm on that the stiff arms on that 3rd and 1 are just ridiculous. The 4th and 1 conversions, and I mean, even when the second to last drive. Yeah, or I guess that was really the last time the Ravens got the ball and ran plays. But there was like 4 minutes left, and they only ran like 4 plays, but they bled the clock all the way down to the 2-minute warning, ended up having to punt. But they got, they picked up 1 first down, and they forced the Chargers to take 2 more timeouts. And, that's because you are able to run the ball the way that you can. So maybe I should be giving it to Ricard or whoever, but Derrick Henry is my number 1.
All right. Continue to get me yours at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter or on Blue Sky. I'm trying to think if there are any other. Mark Andrews came up on a few different people's lists. Brian had Mark Andrews at number 4. Josh had him at number 5.
Definitely seems like, he's being a factor again in the red zone on 3rd downs.
SB had him at number 3. Boy, everybody seemed to have Mark Andrews on their list.
Zay Flowers, I considered offensively.
My guy Winston Rigsby. Love Winston. Winston gets in. Blue Sky. It's happening over there. Winston gets in. He has Mark Andrews at number 4. Yeah, a lot of Mark Andrews for Pats on the Ass. That was the reason, for the record, that I said, it's clear. Like, what was a tight end by committee early on in the season? I know Charlie Kohler ended up having a catch later in the game. Did he get hurt? Did I see people tweeting about that?
Yeah, Zaribek said that he was in a sling. I forget
Doesn't seem great.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem ideal. Bummer. All right, well, we don't know anything yet, so I won't overreact to it, but
I haven't seen any other updates.
And there's no John Harbaugh, Monday press conference this week because of the Monday night game and then going into the holiday week, so they'll wait for tomorrow, so we're not going to get an update from John Harbaugh about anything until tomorrow. But, yeah, that's a bummer if Charlie Kohler is dealing with a real injury. But, yeah, there's no tight end by committee anymore. It's defaulted back to Mark Andrews as being the guy, and that was sort of what I was trying to say is I thought it was still something like plus 290 for Mark Andrews as an anytime touchdown scorer. I'm like, he's the top red zone target. That's a ticket that I want to have. And he had scored touchdowns in 4 of 5 games and then just kind of wasn't targeted at all in the Steelers game, and they tend to overcorrect. The fact that they didn't go to Mark Andrews and Derrick Henry a lot last week made me say, I think there's going to be a lot of Mark Andrews and Derrick Henry tonight. So that's why I wanted the over on Derrick Henry, and that's why I wanted Mark Andrews as an anytime touchdown scorer. So check, and check. That's what I like there. Shayna has Todd Monken at number 4.
Sure.
Stuck with the run. I'm good with that. And somebody had Zach Orr on their list as well. Chris had Zach Orr on his list. So yeah, a bunch. I do
Zay
think
Flowers had 8 targets. The being able to get out of bounds during that 2-minute drill right before half was impressive.
Yeah, they get from one side of the field to the other, absolutely. And then the comeback on the play where Lamar scrambled to his right on 3rd down. That ended up being the field goal drive, but still, it was a big play. I think it was 3rd and 11 or 3rd and 10.
Yeah, that sounds right. He definitely had at least one big 3rd down.
There were 2 long 3rd down conversions on the field goal drive. It was that weird, like they weren't getting anything going, and they were converting, and then ended up at 3rd and 10 again, and they just threw short of the sticks, which was interesting because I thought that was purposeful. Like, we need to make sure we get yards to help our kicker in this spot. Like, maybe he turns it upfield and gets a first down out of it, but like we're not going to throw to the sticks here. We're going to throw short of the sticks.
This was the first drive out of half.
Out of the half, the field goal drive. They convert a 3rd and 10, a 3rd and 11, and then they're faced with 3rd and 10 again. Do I have all that right?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, the 3rd and 9 conversion to Andrews.
3rd and 9.
And then the 3rd and was it 3rd and 11 or something to Zay?
I don't know. Do you have the plays in front of you? That was what I was trying to get the answer. No,
it was a 3rd and 10. Okay, yeah,
yes,
25 yards to Zay.
Yeah, and then the last one was another 3rd and 10, right?
It was, and then they went underneath.
They went underneath to Zay, and the idea being there, we want to get yards for our kicker. But I do think that's an interesting in a past life. I don't think you're purposefully drawing up a play in that spot that isn't to the sticks. I think your goal
definitely set up a nervy 45-yard
2 years ago. You're 100% going to the sticks on 3rd down from there because it would have otherwise been a 50-yard field goal, and you're like, that's a chip shot for Justin Tucker. But I thought last night that was the signal of where you're making different decisions based on the struggles of your kicker.
I think after the first touchdown, I think I was watching an extra point most intently than I have in my entire Justin Tucker life.
Not great, but he was fine. He was fine last night, so all was good.
He was perfect.
We'll get our Pats up. That's true. We'll get our Pats up at GlennClarkRadio.com a little bit later on. All right, when we come back in, we'll get a tidbit. We'll get Tubular to wind things down for a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Visit Harford County this holiday season for a brand new event. You'll feel like you stepped into a holiday movie. Harford Holidays is overflowing with the spirit of the holiday season. You'll be amazed by the jaw-dropping light displays, thrilled by a visit to Santa's workshop, and have the holiday time of your life with sleigh rides, a special vendor village, s'mores making stations, and so much more. It's a holiday light experience, new at Ripken Stadium, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, December 6th through December 22nd. For ticket information, head to visitharford.com. You'll have the happiest holiday season ever.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their amazingly scrumptious, fat, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. Every season is crab season at Costas, so make your plans now by calling 410-477-1975 and reserve your taste of heaven. Sit back, crack some crabs, and watch the Ravens chase down another title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday nights, Costas offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30, and there are nightly specials Monday through Friday. So head on down to the Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin, and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
The latest edition of PressBox is available now. On the cover, Brooks Dubose profiles Maryland basketball forwards Derek Queen and Julian Reese as the Baltimore-built duo reunites in College Park with hopes of bringing the Terps back to prominence. Also inside, meet college basketball players from all of the area's D1 programs. PressBox is available for free at over 500 locations throughout the region, including 60 Royal Farm stores, where you can read the entire issue online at PressBoxOnline.com, where you can also find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps.
Need a trophy or award that's as unique as the achievement? Look no further than Crown Trophy. With locations in Owings Mills and Gaithersburg, they specialize in custom trophies, plaques, and medals for any occasion. From sports and academic awards to employee recognition and corporate gifts, visit crowntrophy.com today and let them help you create a lasting memory for your school, team, or business. Crown Trophy is a proud supporter of the Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association. crowntrophy.com.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, it's winding down here for a Tuesday edition of the program. Remember, we'll be with you again tomorrow and then off Thursday and Friday. But Reed and I will be together over on 105.7 The Fan on Thursday and Friday. If you just need that sweet fix of my voice, you can get it there. The Boys of Hamden calendar, I'm not going to show you much. Again, you got to pay for that. You don't get the goods. You don't get the good stuff. But you want to support the Maryland SPCA and get a little sex appeal in your house? boysofhamden.com. What are you laughing about over there?
Nothing.
What was the laugh for?
No, it was support. It was like, yeah, I can't wait to get one.
Let's try this again. If you want to support the Maryland SPCA and get a little sex appeal in your house, you go to boysofhamden.com and order your 2025 Boys of Hamden calendar. It'll feature some familiar faces, myself, Stan the Fan in there in September. Go get that right now, boysofhamden.com. Tidbit is brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel. Yeah, the both teams are home this weekend, right? You can make a whole day out of it. Back-to-back games, I believe. I think Commanders home at 1, Ravens home at 4, so there could be a lot of winning for you this Sunday at Live Casino and Hotel.
That's correct, because when you are at Live Casino Hotel during home games for Baltimore and Washington, and every time they score a touchdown, you get Live Rewards members get $7 in free slot play. You have to have your Live Rewards card inserted correctly into the slot machine, any slot machine on the floor, and be actively playing in order to get your prize. But once those touchdowns score during home games for Baltimore and Washington, $7 in free slot play. Adirondack Mills must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
By the way, DJ Ralph Love gets in on Blue Sky with his pads on the ass and is all over the place. Like he's got Rosengarten at 5, Stanley at 4, Tucker at 3. Like just a wild. Oh, you know what? He put sorry, he didn't put a second defensive player on the list. Doesn't count, Ralph. Sorry. Gotta do that in order to count. But yeah, I mean, look, I thought the offensive line was very good last night. There's just still enough penalties for me to be like, I can't single out one that I think was most outstanding or most dominant. So none of them on my list. All right, what you got for tidbit?
What do I have? I have clicking around here. I guess. I guess this won't sound too unsurprising, but yeah, we briefly touched on it with Patrick. Auburn was down by 16 at halftime.
Yep.
In Maui, and then North Carolina was down by 18 at halftime, trailing to Dayton. Both went on to come back and win the game. It is the first time in at least the last 25 years that two Division I teams have overcome a 15-point halftime deficit and win in the same arena on the same day.
I mean, that doesn't kind of limits you to conference tournaments, NCAA tournaments, and these events. I mean,
pretty impressive stuff.
I guess it's way more anomaly than it is.
The NFC North right now has become the second division since 1970 to have 3 teams with 8 wins through 11 games. 8 or more wins through 11 games. Can you name the last time?
I mean, is this a joke?
It was the 1997 NFC Central.
Sure, with the same teams, with the Packers, not the Lions probably. The Packers, the Vikings, and the third would be...
Who's in the NFC Central?
No, the Saints were in the West.
Were they really?
Yeah. Well, who else was going to be in the West?
Yeah, I guess it's like the Memphis Grizzlies being...
The Buccaneers?
Was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 8-3. All three were 8-3. Minnesota, Green Bay, and Tampa. Then ESPN had the highest, the best win percentage in primetime games.
Why do I feel like there was, maybe it was there was one of the Atlanta teams, either the Braves or the Falcons, was for some reason in the West at some point. I got to look this up. Go ahead. Keep going with your thing.
Lamar has the highest winning percentage in primetime games since 1970. This is from ESPN. With at least 15 starts, he is 20-5, so an 800 win percentage. Can you round out the top four here? Other guys with a 7.
It was the Atlanta Braves, who were once in the AL or the NL West. The Braves, the Reds, were also in the NL West.
Of course. Why wouldn't they be?
Until 1994. I don't know if that dates to the Braves being in Milwaukee, and that's the reason why they were still in the West when they moved to Atlanta. I don't know the details, but the Braves were in the West. I had that correct. Thank you. I humbly tip my cap. What were you were saying something?
Yeah, Lamar Jackson, good in primetime.
Yeah.
Can you name the other 4 guys that are good in primetime?
I saw this graphic on the screen. I want to say Steve Young was on it.
Steve Young was in fact on it. 23-7 in primetime. 767 win percentage.
Mahomes?
For Steve Young. Not Mahomes.
Brady?
Not Brady.
All right. Was it Montana?
Joe Montana is on the list.
Okay.
22-8. 733 win percentage. For Joe
I feel like there was another old guy on the list.
Yeah, he's pretty old. 15-5-1 in primetime.
Say he's pretty old. That means he's alive. Jim Plunkett.
Make sure he's alive, I guess.
Yeah, he's definitely Fran Tarkenton.
Nope. Yeah, never mind. He is no longer.
Oh, he's no longer with us.
He's no longer with us.
Well done, sir. Well done. I don't think it's Y.A. Tittle. They weren't playing a lot of primetime games back then.
No, they weren't. This is since 1970.
Yeah. Someone who's not with us any longer. It's not Bart Starr. Len Dawson?
No Len Dawson.
The Snake? Ken Stabler?
Yes, Ken Stabler.
Were you about to say no when I said the Snake?
Well, I didn't know his nickname was the Snake.
Well, who did you think it was?
I knew. I just didn't think that.
Well, then
that
maybe
would be
don't
Ken
say
Stabler's.
no until you know who the Snake is.
Why was his nickname the Snake?
Because of what was in his pants.
Is it really?
I have no idea.
Jerry Jones would reveal that, or what?
Yeah, right. I actually don't remember why Ken Stabler was the Snake. Hang on, why was Ken Stabler the Snake? Kenny was zigzagging down the field for a touchdown run one night. Brenda told AL.com Friday morning. Denzel told Kenny's father that he was running like a snake.
Snakes don't run.
I guess Jake Plummer was also known as the Snake, but that makes sense because, Jake the Snake.
Okay, rhymes.
Most of kids named Jake are called the Snake at some point.
And then I was going to do Derrick Henry has, since 2018, has averaged, after another great night, obviously, last night, has averaged 4.9 yards per carry since 2018. And guys that have had at least 500 carries since 2018, he is tied for fifth, the fifth best.
I'm kind of surprised that he's that low on the list.
There are 4 guys who have had 500 carries since 2018. Or at least 500 carries since 2018 that average more than 5 yards a carry.
All right, I'll ask the obvious question. Are they all running backs?
Nope.
Is one of them Lamar Jackson?
Lamar Jackson has the highest yards per carry.
You thought you were going to get me on that one. That was a setup.
He's averaging 6 yards a carry on 978 rush attempts.
Is he the only quarterback on the list?
He is not.
Josh Allen?
Josh Allen's number 2. Yeah. 5.4 yards per carry.
You were licking your chops over there. You thought... I know what I'll do. He'll name every running back ever. He'll name Hassan Haskins and Jerome Ford and Tyler Beatty and I'll get it.
You're just
Eno
too smart.
Benjamin.
You're just too smart for me. I should have said
Ito Smith. Ito and Eno. He'll name all of them.
I should have said no. I should have said I can't answer that when you said, are they all quarterbacks?
Well, if
all
you had said
backs?
that, then I know that I would have known. All right, is that it for quarterbacks?
I don't know.
Stop it. Is that it for quarterbacks?
That is it for quarterbacks.
So Saquon?
Saquon's not in the top 5 here. Saquon is top 12, though, since 2018.
How about
4.6 yards per carry.
How about Alvin Kamara?
No Kamara.
Nick Chubb?
Nick Chubb is. He is top 4. 5.1 yards per carry for Nicholas Chubb.
John Taylor?
John Taylor's tied with Derrick Henry at 4.9, but not in the top 4.
How about Josh Jacobs? He had a bad year last year.
Yeah,
probably.
not Josh Jacobs. Where's Josh Jacobs?
How about
Josh Jacobs is outside the top 25.
How about Aaron Jones?
Aaron Jones is also tied with Derrick Henry, so just outside
going on
the
there?
top 4.
McCaffrey?
Not McCaffrey. He would be 8th behind Taylor, Henry, and Jones.
Well, now it don't make no sense.
Most of his damage done in the race because he has, well, I guess Josh Allen 720 carries. This guy also had 727 carries since 2018.
727 carries. It's not Zeke, is it?
No, it is not Zeke.
Joe Mixon?
Not Joe Mixon.
Thou shalt not pass.
God.
I'm loving the shillelagh. I'm all in on the shillelagh. I'm a shillelagh guy now, actually.
That's a full
that's what
big
we've learned-
like
that's
a
what we've
full
learned
size
about
one
me.
that you can actually.
Yeah, I kind of want to be Seamus, actually, as I think that's what I want moving forward. I just sort of want to have a slow transition into, like, one day you just walk in and, like, you're an Irishman? Like,
You're going to have the...
What happened here?
What,
yeah, the
Irish
curly
mutton
red.
chops
Or the
or
red.
something?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to do the whole thing. I'm going to wear wife beaters, and I'm going to wear the like taxi
Oh, the
cab
little
driver
hat.
caps. Yeah, like I'm doing the whole thing. I don't know what it's called, actually. I used to have a few. God, how about... Also, keep in mind, this counts 2020, so it shouldn't count because 2020 wasn't real. So
It does count 2020,
Well, you should've
but
just
he
thrown all
really
that out.
got in his groove 2 years ago when we ended up with this team in 2022.
Ended up with this team in 22 and got in his groove. Ended up with a team in 2022. Ended up with a team in 2022.
Yeah, because he's been around the block.
He's been around the block, but he...
Played 7 games with the Ravens? Huh. They're in the... He snuck in there during that 2015 season. He played
up with someone in 2022.
He played with 3. That was his rookie year, 2015. He played with 3 different teams. But he's been with the same team since 2022 now.
Oh, Raheem Mostert.
Raheem
Mostert.
Mostert.
Yep.
Forget about his Ravens cameo.
Yep.
But yeah, 5.1 yards per carry for Raheem Mostert.
All right.
And if you round out the top 10 here, Gus Edwards is in the top 10.
Oh, okay.
4.7
right.
yards per carry. Also, Miles Sanders and Tony Pollard up there in the top 10. Or top 11, I guess. But they're all tied. Yeah, there you go.
Very good. Very good. Now, let's get tubular.
Have you ever thought of taking a cruise to these wonderful destinations with sunny skies and beautiful beaches? Well, wait no longer. We're ready for you to cruise from the Cruise Maryland Terminal.
Have a little phrase that you can go from baggage to margarita in about 15 minutes.
Choose fun with an array of destinations, onboard activities, entertainment, and world-class cuisine.
Contact your travel agent and book your cruise today. Let your adventure begin.
All right, here's what's coming up, totally tubular-wise. Couple of local teams in action tonight. Loyola's at home against VMI, 7 o'clock on ESPN+. Coppins at St. Joe's, 7 o'clock on ESPN+ as well. Busy day in hoops. In Maui, UConn. Yeah, if you missed UConn Memphis, that was a wow. I mean, that was just 3 really great games in Maui yesterday. UConn loses, so they'll play Colorado.
Michigan State. Ugh.
Why? What's your problem with Michigan State?
They just didn't put on a good game for us.
Oh, yeah, Michigan State and Colorado, that was a kind of a dud, but whatever. UConn, Colorado, 3:30 on ESPN2, and then Memphis, Michigan State at 6 on ESPN. And then late tonight, I mentioned Auburn, Carolina at 11 on ESPN. Before that on ESPNU, Iowa State, Dayton at 8:30. The Players Era Festival gets underway for the first time out in Vegas on TNT. Oregon, Texas A&M at 4:30 on TBS. San Diego State, Creighton at 2. Houston, Alabama at 8. Rutgers, Notre Dame at 10:30. There are other college hoops events, the Cancun Challenge, the Sunshine Slam, the Acrisure Series. There just couldn't be more going on. You can find the rest of it by going to GlennClarkRadio.com.
You're not gonna go with the lead here?
What?
Centennial Conference Digital Network at 5 p.m. Gettysburg Women's Basketball.
Oh, hell yeah.
Nationally ranked Gettysburg Women's Basketball.
That's all I'm watching.
Taking on York.
That's all I'm watching. College football. I'm sorry. I'm happy for you, pal. I enjoy. I want you to have a great broadcast. It's not just not gonna, just not going to be the lead.
What do you mean?
Just not
I don't
gonna.
understand.
You don't? Really? Action tonight, Toledo and Akron, 7 o'clock on ESPN2. Kent State Buffalo. Boy, they got kicked over to ESPN Plus. That's I guess just because so many hoops. So many hoops games.
Wow.
There's nowhere for them. And then the rankings show at 8 o'clock on ESPN so that we can all flip out about whether Indiana is in the top 12 anymore or whatever. NBA Cup back underway, relevant for our pool. Bucks Heat 7:30 on TNT. Lakers Suns at 10 o'clock on TNT. And Bulls Wizards at 7 on Monumental. CW for WWE NXT tonight at 8 as well. Non-sports.
It's called a patty cap, I think, as well. They
is that
sometimes
what it's called?
There's several names. Yeah. Patty cap, scally cap, maybe. I don't know.
Whatever.
It is the season 33 finale of Dancing with the Stars. Everyone's favorite is a finalist, Danny Amendola. We'll see if he wins.
Is he okay? Good for him.
Somehow Dwight Howard made it all the way to the second to last round last week, but he did not make it to
I
the
feel
finals.
like athletes tend to do well on this show just because they're athletic.
Even like a 7-footer, you think?
I mean, yeah, that's surprising. But don't
Danny
they put
Amendola, I guess,
they
makes
put
sense.
like old people and fat people, and it's just going to be tough to be really great ballroom dancers. I think an athlete is more likely to be able to figure it out.
Ryan Clark and Kaylee Cuoco will be on Seth Meyers.
Yes,
nice.
Promoting Moana.
Oh, really? Good for
That's what
them.
they're
That's
talking
pretty cool.
about.
That's pretty cool.
They're talking about Moana.
Just football for Ryan Clark inside the NFL, actually specifically. St. Dennis Medical, new episode of that on NBC.
I like that show. It's fun.
And on Prime Video, if anyone's into it, it's In the Game, Madden NFL docuseries.
Wait, but it's about the
it's about the
video
game,
not about
Madden.
Yeah, I watch anything that's about John Madden.
There's a lot of John Madden in it.
Yeah, I'm sure, but if it's not about John Madden,
it's about the video
I don't
game.
care.
Yeah, it doesn't look very good.
I don't care. I'm out.
There's an Anthony Jeselnik special as well on Netflix if anyone's big fan of Anthony Jeselnik.
He's like best friends with my buddy Greg Rosenthal from NFL Network.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they did a show together for years. I didn't know. I was doing a show with Greg Rosenthal, and one day he's like, "Oh, I got to do Anthony Jeselnik's show," and I'm like, "You're on Anthony Jeselnik?" He's like, "Well, we do it together." I said, "What? What is the story there?" Very good. Thanks today to Emory Hunt. Thanks to Joe Serpico and Patrick Stevens. We'll get it all up in the greatest hits section of the
Can You Take Me Higher?
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Tomorrow on the program, what are we doing tomorrow?
Jay Gruden.
Jay Gruden. We'll get his thoughts on the Ravens.
And Seth Greenberg will join us.
Seth Greenberg from ESPN will check in.
He has to make picks, too.
He was in the studio. We'll do picks with KZ, try to preview the Eagles a little bit if we can. Got to cram a lot of show into tomorrow. No Drew tomorrow, which is just, God, that's a bummer. That's such a bummer. What are we going to do? Maybe we just cancel. Just say, no way. Can't survive without you, pal. All right, thanks everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Visit Hartford, Live Casino and Hotel, Cruise Maryland, Crown Trophy, Easy Pass, Royal Farms, Green Turtle Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, Costas Inn, MSAA, Maryland Sports, Baltimore Orioles, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Tuesday evening. Go Loyola and Coppin Hoops. Duke sucks.